It's 6:07 PM, Monday, November 18th, 2024, and I'm calling the Groton Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting to order. Our first order of business is to review the October 21st, 2024 meeting minutes. Does anyone have any comments or concerns about the minutes? Not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, that passes. Next, we'll review Groton Middle School data, action plans, and intervention support. So who wants to introduce that?
Well, I'd just like to say, I've got Principal Bass and the assistant principals we've got Jamal Davis, Keith Deneluk, and Samantha Singleton here with us as well. And I apologize, I just was brought to my attention that some of the PowerPoint show was cut off. So you might have had some pieces that were missing. So I know that they're going to go through this and can explain anything and walk you through this. So I'll let them begin. And this, it will include also their action steps for improvement and even some things on attendance, some information on attendance. Clint, can you just see if Peter needs any help? Oh, here it goes. There we go.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see everyone around the table. It's been a while for some of you. It's always good to see you. So tonight we're going to share our SBAC results and our NGSS results and talk about our action plan moving forward. What you probably have reviewed already, what we're going to share with you tonight will show you that we did make some incremental gains. We did make some movement northward in a couple of areas in relation to our DERG peers. But we're going to walk you through our school makeup. Samantha Singleton, Mrs. Singleton, will speak to our special education programs, and then I'll walk you through the data, and then toward the end, we will go through our action steps. You will hear from Mr. Davis, you will hear from Ms. Singleton again, and then Mr. Danieluk will close us out, and we'll be happy to take questions. All right, so here we go. As I mentioned, we're going to talk more about our special education programs, but we do have a continuum of supports, as you might imagine, at all schools throughout Groton and the state of Connecticut. We have school social workers, we have speech language pathologists, OT, PT, and so on and so forth. Our student makeup, at this point, looking at about 884 students, and you can see that 44% are eligible for free reduced lunch, 18% of them are special education students, and 5% of our student population at this point are multilingual language learners and multilingual. Previously, they've been referred to as English language learners, but this represents an increase from about 2.5% a year prior to now about 5% of our population. So in terms of our, I'll jump down to our noteworthy happenings. That last piece, we have, as I mentioned, we have an increased multilingual learner population. Our chronic absenteeism trend is moving in the right direction. We have not arrived where we'd like to be yet, And just as a reminder, chronic absenteeism are those students who are absent for 10% or more of the days in a school year. So if they hit 18 or more days out, they're considered to be chronically absent. We did have the opportunity over the past, roughly the past year, to have high dosage tutoring in math, and in which we were, through a grant, we were able to bring in tutors to work with 4 or fewer students who met criteria for needing math support, and we were able to work with these students during their power-up classes, and also during, some of them already had Tier 2 math scheduled in last year. So this year, we continue with that and added some resources, which Mr. Davis will speak to in our action plan. Also, we're excited for the upcoming DODEA grant, which will continue to support our progress with MYP, the Middle Years Program for International Baccalaureate. We have a number of staff who we've added over the years who have not yet had the level 1 training, so we really would like to proceed with that.
Peter, how many high-dosage tutors do you have?
Tutors?
Yeah.
How many high dosage tutors do we have at the moment, Mr. Davis?
We have a total of 16 per grade level.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Singleton will speak to this.
So we just wanted to discuss our education, our special education programs at GMS. So we do have 3 different models that you can see on the screen. So our resource model is what a majority of our special education students are in. And what this model is there's a special education teacher assigned to each team. For 7th and 8th grade, there are 3 special education teachers. In 6th grade, due to the high number of students, there are 4 special education teachers in that team, so one of the teachers is split between 2 teams. So in this model, the special education teacher not only pushes into the classes, but they also have a resource block. And depending upon the student needs, a student can have resource every day or every other day, majority or every other day. And they work on curriculum modifications, accommodations, goals and objectives for their IEPs. They work on transition goals as they move into 8th grade. And also in this model, students can have para-educator support in their classes, whether it's enhanced support or one-to-one support, depending upon the student's needs. And also, there are some students who would fall into this model, but they don't necessarily have resource because they are identified as having speech services, so they don't necessarily need that resource model, but they still have goals and objectives and a case manager as well. Our SEAL Academy is one of our specialized classrooms. This is for students who have cognitive disabilities and autism spectrum disorders. Because of the number of students, we did increase to 2 classrooms this year. So there are now 2 special education teachers, a board-certified behavior analyst, and 2 RBTs, or registered behavior technicians, as well as para-educators. In this setting, students do go out for music as well as adaptive PE, and there are some students within this program who also go out for their core classes. The majority do stay in the space for their core classes, and we were able to, through scheduling this year, make it so that one of our 7th grade science teachers could go in and actually teach science and do experiments with them right in the classroom, so that has been great. Our Toledo Academy is another specialized classroom. This is for students who have social and emotional behavioral disabilities. So within this program, there are 2 special education teachers and a school psychologist, as well as para-educators. Within Toledo, they teach the core classes, so social studies, ELA, math, and science. And then students go out for their essential classes. However, there are several students who are also going out for their core classes as well, because the goal is to help them with self-regulation and developing coping strategies and move them back into the mainstream so slowly with the help of the para-educators as well. So those are just some background on our programs at GMS.
Thank you. All right, to orient you to the SBAC, well, I'm quite certain you are very familiar. There are 4 levels that students can score. Level 1 does not meet, level 2 approaching the benchmark, level 3 is the benchmark, where they're meeting the standards, and level 4 is exceeding those standards. Here's how things went in ELA last year. We had 47% of our students either meet the benchmark or exceed it. In grade 6, 43% were at or above that benchmark. In grade 7, 45% were at or above that benchmark. And in grade 8, 52% were at or above the benchmark. The definition for high needs, students who are considered to be high needs are those who are receiving special education, are multilingual learners, and those who qualify for free or reduced lunch. And then we're going to take a look and see how our students did in those categories. So our population at Groton Middle is approximately 56% high needs across the board. And the bar in blue are the high needs students and how they fared by percentage. See that 41% of our high needs students did not meet the standard, 29% were approaching, 24% met, and 6% exceeded the goal. The gray bars are those who are not high needs, 9, 23, 43, and 25. It's a bit of a breakdown of those high needs students, and you'll notice that there are numbers to the left. But we need to keep in mind that as we look at these numbers, these are not necessarily individual students because some students may qualify for high needs in more than one category. So of those students who are special education, we had 11% meet the goal, 1% exceeded in ELA. Those who are multilingual learners, 26% were approaching, 7% met the goal, and we did not have any who exceeded the benchmark. Of those economically disadvantaged, we had 30% were approaching, 26% met the goal, and 7% exceeded the goal. Here's how we did this year in relation to our peer group. We're in DIRG G, District Reference Group. So we were third. The state is gray, the gray bar. We're the red bar. Everyone else is in blue. So we were third in comparison to our peers. Last year in the English Language Arts, we were 5th. Now, what we looked at so far were the summative results, right? Levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're going to talk about the growth. For each student has a growth target that's set by the state of Connecticut, depending on how they did on their overall score. Those who scored a level 1 typically have the largest growth target, the number of points that they're supposed to gain. And it gets smaller incrementally as you go through. What we're looking at here, the blue bars represent whether the students made their growth target. It's completely binary. If they got 100% of the growth target, if they achieved the growth target, they're represented here. If they didn't, they're not represented in that blue bar. Right? So in 6th grade ELA, 27.6% of students met their growth target. 7th grade, 34.4% met their growth target. And in 8th grade, 42.3% met their growth target. The green bars represent the entire grade, the students in the grade, and the overall percentage of the growth target they achieved as a group. So as a group, the 6th graders met 43.7% of the average growth target, the average percentage of the target you achieve. So 43.7 was the rate of the target achieved, the average. 7th grade, 56.8%, and in 8th grade, 62.7% was the average growth target achieved. Mathematics. Again, we're back to the levels 1, 2, 3, and 4. Level 3 being the benchmark, level 4 being exceeding that benchmark. Overall, as a school, 33% of our students were at or above the benchmark. And we can see that in grade 6, 31% were at or above. Grade 7, 34% were at or above. And grade 8, 33%. Again, high needs versus non-high needs. The shape of the graph is very similar to ELA. 56, 25, 13, and 7 for high needs, and for our non-high needs, 20% did not meet, 31% were approaching, 28% met, and 21% exceeded. Again, a breakdown. % of our special education students met, 3% exceeded. Multilingual learners, 7% met, 2% exceeded. And those free and reduced lunch, 14% met and 7% exceeded. Third, in comparison to our peers, this year, last year, we were 5th in this category as well. Again, the growth target. The percentage in blue is the growth rate, again, for those are the percentage of students that met their growth target. So in 6th grade, 17.2% of students met their growth target. In 7th grade, 52.4% met their growth target. And in 8th grade, 28.8% met their growth target. The average percentage of target achieved for 6th grade was 31.7%. 7th grade, 71.2%, which is really pretty outstanding when you take a look at how others fared in our DER.
And that's their growth from 6th grade to 7th grade that's
Correct.
noted here.
Correct. And then in 8th grade, 41.6% of the growth target was achieved. Now, 8th grade is the grade that takes the NGSS assessment. Last year, 44% of our students were at or above. Again, high needs versus non-high needs. 42% did not meet standard. For our high needs students, 29% were approaching, 27% met the standard, 3% exceeded the standard. And the non-high needs are in gray. 14% did not meet, 24% were approaching, 49% met, and 13% exceeded the standards. All right, so we had 16% of our special education students met the standard, 8% of our multilingual learners, and this was 12 students. That number's missing there. And then 27% of our economically disadvantaged students met the target and 3% exceeded. In comparison to our peers, we were 5th this year. Last year, we were 4th. That brings us to our action plan. We're going to start with Mr. Davis.
All right, thank you. So based on that data, we wanted to obviously develop action plans that specifically speak to the data. Our focus continues from last year because we did see some growth, particularly in the growth numbers, by prioritizing data teams. Research strongly supports the use of data teams as all of us know, to enhance student achievement. But we also wanted to focus or foster more collaboration amongst our teachers to promote data-driven decision-making. And so what you see in that first bullet point, it speaks to that. So we're doing that in language arts, math, and science. We've provided opportunities throughout the day for that collaboration across team. And then also, we have dedicated kind of quarterly the opportunity to review data with that aligns to the interim assessments. What we're doing differently this year with the interim assessments is that we are fully committing to having those interim assessments done 4 times a year in math and language arts. The research has shown with that commitment, students tend to show growth in their SBAC scores as well as in achievement, overall achievement. So we've committed to that. What we wanted to do is we wanted to make it meaningful for our staff as well as our students. So we looked at the current SBAC data and looked at our curriculum and made sure that it was relevant and it aligned those interims that we selected. A little bit of background of those interims. Those interims could be very broad or they can be focused. So there are 2 sets of interims. Those interims usually take between 40 to 60 minutes for those students to take. We have encouraged the teachers to do that really in 3 different areas. One, as a standardized form, which means that they are sitting and taking it as they would take the SBAC. So we are hoping through that process that they would become very familiarized with the item sets. And then the teachers are using that for dialogue and conversation. The other 2 areas is integrating into the instruction. The interims do allow you to actually pull one of those item sets or more and allow students really to look at those and have discussions around those. And I'll get to that of how that's going to work with our building thing classes in a bit. And the last one is guided practice. So now we can have our teachers be able to show up on, let's say, the Promethean board, a item, and talk through how to solve that item. Okay, so again, getting to that practical understanding of how the test is being presented and how it aligns to our curriculum and our standards. As you can see, we are also going to be focusing on integrating those interims with our NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards. At this point, the interims are a little bit structured differently, but we can still do the integration and guided practice with it, and that's going to be the focus this year. The NGSS is only done during or taken at the 8th grade level in the middle school, but we want to make sure that our students are exposed earlier that, and so again, those interims will be done, are currently being done at the 6th and 7th grade level. The focus is also in our terms of our instructional practices. So obviously we want to have that data to inform instruction, but what does our instruction look like? And so again, research has showed tremendous potential with building thinking classrooms. Building thinking classrooms is great because it allows us to operationalize our MYP, our middle years program, in the sense that it focuses on inquiry-based, it focuses on student-centered learning and collaboration. So it moves the teacher from being the one who's constantly just kind of giving out the knowledge and forcing the students to apply what they learn and work collaboratively to solve the information, which aligns to how the SBAC is structured. So we really feel by having these building thinking classrooms in place, particularly in the math class, we will see some growth. And we're basing that, if we go back to that data that Mr. Bass has shown, particularly with the 7th grade, because the 7th grade, all 3 teachers, math teachers, committed to the thinking classroom, and you can see that that group had the largest growth of 71.2% or average. And so our goal this year is to expand that beyond the 7th grade and have all 3 levels, and all 3 teachers at all 3 levels commit to that. Dreambox is something that we've been doing for a number of years. Again, research has shown that students who are committed to Dreambox, about 60 minutes, are showing improvement. Dreambox is used with all students, so it's not just students who require intervention. Again, that commitment allows students to engage more, obviously build confidence, and use that confidence as motivation, which improves engagement. And our goal is hopefully that engagement will improve student achievement. And then the last part, we have some questions on that. So I really want to speak, to those questions, that high dosage tutoring. In math, due to grants, we were able to continue what we had last year. Right now, up until the end of January, we have 2 per grade level. These tutors have been receiving professional development in a product known as VMath. In fact, that all our tiered students are receiving. They are doing 2 types of models. They're doing a pull-out model where, again, they're pulling out students during their power-up, which is kind of like a structured study hall. So it's not taking them away from instructional time. It's into it. They're there for about a little over 30 minutes, which is the recommendation, and they're working with their tutor with a tutor of 1-to-4 ratio, 1 tutor to 4 students. Some of it is smaller. So they're really getting direct to students, but they're following that same curriculum that we have adopted, which is that VMath curriculum, which is standard-based. The other model is that they're pushing into tiered classes. So we do have students who we have identified to be in what we call a tier 2, where it's a 1-to-8 ratio when they work directly with their core teachers. For the most part, there's some that work with other math teachers, but those tutors are pushing in and they're dividing the students up based on skill and working with those students. And what we're seeing with the progress monitoring data that we have, we're definitely seeing growth. In fact, I had 3 students that came in today, really wanted me to tell everyone that, how much they have taken to the tutor. They feel more confident, and that they really hope that we can continue that in the future. The benchmark assessment that I was talking to you is something that we didn't have before, that now we have through the VMath, and it's given 3 times a year. So again, we are able to do some screening or benchmark in the beginning, which we have, and then around January we'll do a second. So we'll do it again, like I said, the fall, the winter, and the spring. And what we're looking for is growth, right? To really tell us if what we're doing is if our intervention and support is working. In addition to that, the modules that are aligned with the VMath does have some progress monitoring, and we have what we call pre and a post. So again, it gives us some valuable data with alignment to standards, again, which those standards are aligned to aspects. So this information is comprehensive and really allows us to really inform our instruction, but more importantly, allows our teachers to have those meaningful conversation, that dialogue, to really determine what's effective and what needs to be done to meet the students' needs. At this time, I'm going to pass it to Ms. Singleton, who will be going over the next steps that we have focused on.
All right, so continuing on with supporting teaching and learning. So Cornelius Minor has been working with our language arts and social studies teachers, and what he's been working on with them this year is visible thinking strategies, which also align to our MYP and building thinking classrooms work in math. So what that means is, really focusing on inquiry-based learning and allowing students for the opportunity to explore in order to develop their own understanding and content. So actually, I think we all got to sit in on some of his professional development on November 5th with our language arts and social studies teachers. And he gave examples of showing images to students and trying to determine what they gleaned from those images, and focusing on vocabulary as well. Mr. Davis already really spoke to the building thinking classrooms, but when you walk into those settings, you see students working around the room, solving problems together, collaborating together in order to develop a better understanding of the math problem. And one of the great things that we were able to do with our schedule this year, especially for math, is give common planning time for all math teachers every other day. So they can work together to look at data and also to implement the building thinking classrooms. And they do utilize that time across the grade levels. We have continued to work with Dr. Mari Wrightington. So the admin team has been working with her since last year, and we worked with her a lot this summer. We work with her monthly, and the main focus of that is to improve our MTSS, or multi-tiered support systems of support process. We've been doing that by developing consistent forms through the use of actually Google Forms that teachers and counselors can fill out, and it helps streamline the data collection process, as well as setting up the meetings or the CST meetings so that students can be put into the appropriate interventions as needed. We started having quarterly tiered data review meetings. We actually all just had them for the first time last week with the teams, looking at where students are currently and if they need to move into Tier 3, if they need to be exited. So really diving into the data as a team. And what was also nice about our schedule is we were able to back up our tiered intervention, so Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention classes with power-up classes. So it allows for the flexibility of movement. If students need to move out of tiered intervention, they can go into those power-up classes, which are our supported study halls, which makes it a lot easier, which isn't something that we necessarily had last year. Oh, and then my screen. So in terms of progress monitoring resources for language arts, it is something that is a work in progress. We currently do have the IEBs, like Mr. Davis talked about, the interim assessment blocks, where they're very focused in specific areas like vocabulary, for example. So they do provide us with some data, but it is still a piece that we are working towards to identify a progress monitoring resource for ELA like we have in math. Also, professional development for all teachers and multilingual learner strategies. So we have Cheryl Townsend, who's our TESOL teacher. She started with us after the start of the year, so she already did professional development last year, I should say. So this year, she started with us the first day, so she did professional development with our teachers, and she also restructured the model for our multilingual learners, so we developed separate coaching classes based on their levels rather than them being all together. So there's coaching 1 and 2, and then coaching 3. We also were able to cohort students into specific teams so that they could be provided with support in classes with our EL tutors. So that has been great, having her talk to our teachers about different strategies and how to use some of the different translator devices. And she's a great resource to have when teachers need support for those students. And then our after-school learning center is something that we are going to continue. We are currently just waiting for Title I funding. We just sent in our narrative the other day. And so once we get that set, we will be starting and we will be able to move forward with tutors. The focus for the after-school learning center is in math and ELA. And our coordinator, Andrew Avento, he is a social studies teacher at GMS who's worked really hard to really streamline that process and also organize it. So he's created Google Forms for counselors and teachers to complete so that we can identify the students with the greatest need for that and also track the data as they go to see who continues to need it and who can move out of that after-school program. So that runs from 2:30 to 4:15 Mondays and Wednesdays once we get it started.
Could you elaborate a bit on
So hiring, we need to, once we get finalize the funding, we can post the positions and hire the positions. So there's typically certified teachers within our building who do that.
All right, the last portion of the presentation is a focus on climate and culture. In addition to our teaching and learning, we want to create a building that students and staff want to come to each and every day. And so we've really done some work on that. We are relatively young as a school, and so we are still developing kind of who we are and what GMS is, which is a great opportunity for us. So we've been working professional development and restorative practices with Chris Wright. This year she really talked about creating community in your classroom to make sure that our students are coming in each day knowing that someone is there for them, someone who knows them. She talked about doing circles in the classroom, so starting your day in a circle so that you can share amongst your community within the class, how things are going. She also talked about restorative practice when it comes to discipline, obviously rupturing the relationship, but then repairing it. For students to understand that, each day is a new day to learn from our mistakes and move forward. I actually had a restorative meeting with a student and a parent and teacher today that was highly successful. The student was able to go right back to class and have a great math class today. So we've been working with Chris Wright on that, and we will continue that. We also are working with our GMS Safe School Climate Committee on communication. That was one of the areas that had been identified a few years ago. We continue to work on that with weekly emails that kind of outline the schedule for teachers. Mr. Bass holding meetings during lunch for teachers to come. Our goal is really to create an atmosphere where teachers and admin are working together, that there's a free flow of ideas forward and back. And so being present in the classrooms, the hallways, and making sure that ideas that our teachers have, we've got a lot of really talented teachers who have ideas, and we want to make sure that they feel comfortable sharing them with us so we can incorporate them. Faculty mental health and well-being. Again, this committee has organized monthly get-togethers for our faculty and staff. It's a very big school, so you don't have an opportunity maybe to see people each and every day. So each month we just had our TLI day, and so we had a pizza get-together in the cafeteria where people were able to sit and talk and relax. We also had a get-together at Clyde's last month. We've done bowling. So again, really trying to build that community within our school. Student behaviors and needs, that's been a continued focus. If students aren't able to meet the expectations during the day, it makes it difficult for them to learn. And so we really are using our PBIS, our SOAR program, where we talk about that. It's posted around the school. We talk about it on announcements. We have quarterly meetings with our teams to talk about SOAR, which is being safe, open-minded, accountable, respectful, and responsible. That's what we want our students to be each and every day. And so we really focus on that. They can earn tickets when they are caught soaring, and they go into a drawing at the end of the week where they can choose a prize. Students get really motivated. They kind of hedge how they're going to do it. Are they going to hold them all till the end, or are they going to put them in each week? So it is something that they have bought into. And then finally, this year we've really put more of an emphasis on academic achievement, the importance of attendance, and celebrating successes. We have, if you've been to the school, we have our TV screens around the building where we put announcements and things, and this year we've incorporated the honor roll being posted up. We also had our SBAC, any students who met their growth targets or met the standard benchmark, had their names up, and it's really fun to see the students kind of in between classes standing around waiting for that next slide to come up, and there I am. And so just celebrating that when you achieve, we want to make sure you're recognized, all students are recognized. So again, the importance of attendance, we've started posting monthly perfect attendance around as well, so that they can see, like, I came to school and someone knew that I was here. And so we believe that that's important. And so that's how we continue to work on climate and culture. That concludes our presentation.
All right, well, thank you very much, and so now we'll entertain questions from the board. Who'd like to start? You do? Okay. We'll start with you.
So, thank you for your presentation, right? I will be honest, this is just from my perspective. I'm a little sad, right? I know we've made improvements in some of the categories. I'm a little sad.
Jen, microphone.
Oh, sorry. I thought they were on, sorry. I'm a little sad regarding some of the test results, right? And granted that they are only at a certain point in time. Principal Vass, like my son went through your school. I'm pretty sure you're probably in the same mindset, totally, because you're overachieving as far as I've always known you to be. So with that said, there were like a couple questions that stood out to me, and sorry, I was just writing them, so I don't know if they're necessarily in PowerPoint presentation. For the multicultural students, I noticed their scores were really low, right, in certain things, like not meeting, or does not meet, barely approaching. Were they new students to our district, or did they come up through our elementary school?
It's
Rough
varied.
percentage.
It varies.
It varies.
Yeah, we also, this year we have increased dramatically. I think-
Just clarify, it's multilingual.
Yeah, lingual.
Sorry, that's my bad, multilingual.
There is some fluidity in moving in and out, which does make it difficult.
Yep.
I'm not sure our number.
I'm sorry. In addition, all students are required to take the SBAC. So we may have a student who recently arrived in the country last week.
Yeah, that's
They
why I was
arrive
trying.
In April, they are taking that test. So, with our increase in numbers, it's really hard to pin down how long a student has been in our system before they've taken that test.
Okay.
And to be identified, they have to score a certain level at Lost Links, which is not proficient enough. So they're either at a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By 5, we can launch them, and they no longer have that designation. So they usually are students, whether they're new beginners or whether they've just been here for a short time. But it does take time, even when they get here, to get proficient to that level 4 and 5.
Yeah, no.
And they're
Because, like,
walking fresh on a regular basis. We received a student from Pakistan 2 weeks ago. At the start of this year, we received a student from Vietnam.
Yep,
So it's a wide range.
it's a wide range.
Yep.
And I think that Cheryl Townsend has really tried to tighten that program. It's been great having her, especially at the start of the year. And she's been able to, determine where students should go based on their Lost Links in those coaching classes. So having that more consistent support has been wonderful. But, we also have students who come and sometimes they go home for a month and then they come back, right?
Yep.
So that's difficult to have that consistency piece for us.
Okay. And teacher engagement, I'm always going back to this. I think it was like 135 teachers sort of completed the surveys. How do you feel teacher engaged? And that's total district-wide, so to me, that was, not very good as well. So how do you feel like the teachers, do they feel like they're being valued within, Groton Middle School? Because sometimes if teachers are unengaged, it could transfer into the teaching. And I know there's been difficulties because the school's overcrowded, so some of them have to share classrooms and all of that. Do you think that's playing an impact?
So our Safe School Climate Committee takes a very close look at the climate surveys, which are done annually, and we've done a deep dive and done, we identified
Yeah.
those 4 areas. And I think we are definitely making progress.
You are? Okay.
So, it's difficult for me to answer your question wholesale with regard to teacher engagement. But the opportunities for communication are much increased over where we were a year and a half ago. I believe that we are much more visible and accessible, and we're very consistent in our communication now. So that's one piece of it, but it's, as Mr. Danieluk mentioned, working in a large school, 4 different floors, you may not really get to know every single person or even half the staff. So trying to create those opportunities for collegiality, for
Yeah.
the ability to get to know each other are helpful.
Because I was thinking, like, you had mentioned bowling, pizza party, and all of that. It's not mandatory, right? So I guess we could sort of tell, like, what's the participation rate? 5%, 50? Not,
It honestly varies based on the event and the timing.
Event and the timing? Okay.
Yeah. We also, the school climate committee has also really worked with admin to come up with opportunities for them to speak with their colleagues. So, for example, at the beginning of the year, we created a document, How to Be a Good Roommate, and it just really outlined sharing the spaces with each other. And then we offered opportunities at, for them to speak with each other, right? Because to have those conversations about the air fresheners in the room or anything like that, right? Just really focusing on those things. So really hearing what the teachers, especially the ones who move a lot more than some of the others, like the language teachers, right? They move a lot.
Yep.
So really trying to have them have those conversations. Also through scheduling, we really spent a lot of time doing rooms, for example, and trying to keep teachers on the same floor if they're moving, because having to go up and down in that elevator can be a lot during the passing time. So really trying to hear them and make those changes for them was very important as well. So you had 2 smaller schools come together, right, into a bigger school. So it is tough, but I definitely think, like Mr. Bass said, we're at team meetings. He goes to team meetings every month, right? So making it a point for them to know that we're hearing them and adjust.
And this is sort of, I know we're max capacity, bulging at the seams, whatever, at the school. I think there are like those little extra classrooms that we used to have outside of Cutler. No one's ever mentioned this. Would you guys be open to bringing those in? I know it'll probably make the grounds look ugly, but it could help alleviate space, something to think about.
Certainly something we open to have conversations about.
Okay.
I'm not sure where you put them exactly, but.
I don't know either. I don't know either,
Well,
but,
there was, even with the original construction project, there was talk about a new addition, which they had put the new addition on when they built the school.
Right, yeah.
But there was talk about where that could go.
yep,
And it's in the plan, I guess,
I know.
for an extension.
Current environment that we're in,
I know.
we barely get anything, so we need to be very thinking out of the box so that we can possibly like expand space. I don't know, sometimes I feel like that's the reason why my questions were more focused in on, the not the leadership per se, like you and your staff, but like the adults there, right? Because creating that environment of like excitement excites the kids. And that's why going into being disengaged, and I don't know if it is or not, but I just wanted to get your guys' feel on that. And if it's something that we can help with, or anything, because sometimes spending more isn't necessarily the right answer. It's more with the people you have in place, making them.
Absolutely. And as Mr. Danieluk mentioned, we've really, tail end of last year and beginning of this year, have really emphasized with our students and our staff that achievement and learning are really important. Being at school is really important.
Yeah.
And I think that we really believe that we have met a point, we're at a point in the road in our journey becoming a school with an identity, where we said, okay, we opened during COVID. So that was an uphill climb. But our students, and we're hearing good things from our teachers, good feedback from our teachers about our student engagement. Students are more ready to be in the classroom, more ready to learning. They're more engaged. So, not that social and emotional pieces aren't still really important to consider when we're teaching. But starting to put our foot on the gas and say, let's go.
Yeah.
This is important.
It is. Because we got that, what's 1.2 million grant, right, from DODEA, you guys mentioned it, for the, IB program. But if we can barely crawl, meaning like our baseline for math, English, social studies, without, science, how are we going to get to that higher level if our foundation is shaky? So I want us to focus in on getting that foundation, stronger so that we can move those kids.
And believe it or not, MYP does that, because MYP is not an exclusive program. It is for all students. And it's part of the philosophy of how we teach our curriculum, as is building thinking classrooms. They blend very well together, but it allows students the ability to access the curriculum in a more engaged manner through inquiry.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Next, Mike?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, all of your presentation. I just have one question. Most of our high-needs students fall in at least the economically disadvantaged category, and I know that support such as free and reduced lunch, actually free lunch for everybody at the middle school helps immeasurably. But I was wondering if you thought of any additional supports specifically aimed at equaling the playing field for them, and what kind of strategies might we put in place, and what additional resources do we need for that?
So something that we started last year in partnership with United Way is we opened a food pantry within Groton Middle, and on a weekly basis we send home backpacks full of food and other necessities. But I also say that our instructional approach, specifically thinking about building thinking classrooms, really does level the playing field, if you will, because what it does is you have groups of students who are randomly selected, and now they have to really focus on a problem and work collaboratively to solve it. So it's no longer, we'd set up groups and sometimes students would just fall right into their perceived role. Well, I'm not really going to have to talk. I'm going to let someone else who knows math better than I do the talking, and they're right. But they all have to be engaged. They take turns in the roles. And I think that is something, in terms of our instructional approach, that helps all students.
I think going back to your first point, right, understanding our students' needs, right, here in Groton, we have a lot of students who are in need,
Oh.
and so
Keith, do you want to come up to the microphone so we can hear you? Thank you.
just help trying to identify our students' needs, right? Those needs the students who fall into that group. Again, starting the food pantry. We also are trying to meet their needs, especially now as winter is coming, right? Making sure that they're feeling, a student who may not have a jacket or a hat and gloves is less likely to stand at that bus stop for 20 minutes in the morning waiting to come to school. So making sure that we're meeting the needs. We're using a program, DESA, this year, to kind of dig deeper into what maybe some of our students are needing, and then identifying staff members who can support them, so social, emotional, but also their physical and basic needs. Because again, the better they're coming in, having breakfast, having that free lunch, the more willing to be engaged that they may be at school.
This isn't for popularity, but does less homework help? Because, doing most of the work in school rather than in very different home environments.
Yep. Yeah, and I think our teachers have identified that, and I think a lot of what we do, especially in the block schedule, gives us that time to really focus on the learning in class and then some extension work, but being flexible with students, and that's why we have our power-up classes this year, which is a structured study hall, right? Some of our students are going home by themselves and may not have anyone to help them or check, so they have a homeroom where they check in each day. They have 15 minutes where they can also see their teachers, get that help. I wasn't able to do this math problem. Can I go see my teacher? Yes. So I think really trying to accommodate all students' needs is something we are focused on.
And even having after-school programming, whether it's sports or clubs or extra help or tutoring, and then having those extra bus rides home so that everybody has access to all those programs in the middle school and the high school is helpful.
I think too, just having that school-based health center in our building is wonderful, and, we have students who need medical needs met, and they've been able to identify a student has strep, provide them with what they need to go home, and get better so they can return to school or physicals, right, so that they can do those sports. So that has been wonderful, and the counseling piece that goes along with that for a lot of our students. And our social workers work really hard to make sure that our families have resources that they need or knowledge of where to get those resources if they need them as well. And our counselors do too.
First of all, I appreciate your question. As we're emphasizing, the focus must be to, one, identify what possible barriers that some of our students may be experiencing, but at the same time, always have high expectations for our students. And so I just want us to kind of reflect back a little bit on those interventions and supports that we do have in place. The high dosage tutoring, for example, is one area in which we are using targeted and individualized focused instruction to support those students so they can achieve grade level. And while we're not demonstrating achievement at the level that we once done or we hope to be at this point. What we do want to emphasize is that if we can continue to grow and demonstrate that growth over a period of time, the outcome is that we're going to have more students achieving. And so in terms of helping is really just understanding who our population is, but not from a deficit point of view, from a point of view of how do we utilize their strengths to be able to succeed, and how do we lean into, obviously, our capacity of our teachers to meet those needs. And that's what we're doing into the question you had asked in terms of the engagement with our teachers. We are really leaning into them to really, think about their instructional practices, how it aligns to the students that are sitting in their seats. So we're having those type of conversations, which conversations that we didn't have before.
Dean?
There was a time a while ago when 8th grade was as far as you got. I think in this country and in other countries as well. And a high school education was something you had to pay for. I'm going to ask a question. It's not to poke at your particular school, but in my experience, both personal and just from things that I've heard, middle schools, whether they're 7th and 8th or 6th, 7th, and 8th, are very often blamed by high schools for not having prepared the kids properly. Do you have a sense of whether or not we're adequately, because we are necessarily in modern times, passing the 8th graders on to 9th grade and beyond? Do you have a sense of whether or not there's an impression in the high school that our middle school is adequately preparing the kids for high school? I mean, you're going to say yes, of course, but you're going to make progress. But there's often a disconnect between elementary, middle, and then high school.
Look,
it's a training that isn't necessarily
you
life.
always look backwards, right? 8th grade blames 7th grade blames 6th grade, 6th grade blames the elementary school.
Right.
They're not ready.
And it's a tough age, too.
It is.
The kids are a very tough age.
It's a fun, tough age,
Yeah.
right? It's challenging. What I would say is that they're not as prepared as I'd like them to be. And one thing that we did last year, second semester, we made it clear to our 8th grade students that their grades really mattered. And we let them know if they failed math, language arts, that they were going to have to take summer school courses. And that's the first year we've done that since we've become a school. And, it's getting back to that culture of supportive accountability for our kids is a key structure that I think will take us forward, because we want them to be better prepared, not only for high school, but for life in general. As a matter of fact, when we had our SWER meetings to share, to celebrate the successes of those who did reach the goals that we set for them for SBAC, I flat out said, what you're learning here today at Groton Middle will not only take you forward into high school, but you're learning things today at Groton Middle that you'll use for the rest of your life. Because in one of the surveys that was done last year through Ben Moon, taking a look at career clusters and college and career readiness, one of the questions that was asked, what the results really struck me, is that less than 50% of our students believe that what they're learning today at Groton Middle is something that they're going to use for the rest of their lives.
Shocker.
I mean, it comes with the age too, right? But we're trying to, through MYP, through connections with community partners, bring in the real-life connections. We've got a STEM day coming up February 27th in tandem with Electric Boat. And it's doing those sorts of things to really get them to buy in, for lack of a better term, to take this seriously. Because these 3 years they go quickly, and the growth that we see physically, emotionally, and academically from the time they walk in as 6th and when they leave as 8th is great, but we want it to be even bigger.
And listen, I understand perfectly that a heck of a lot of the kids at those grade levels are not taking schooling seriously. They may not even figure it out till about 11th grade, when they'll first look at their GPA and go, holy crap.
Whoever told me
What have I
about
been doing?
You and I both have students, kids at home who are college age or in high school, and there is that natural progression for most.
And I've been there. I didn't wake up till after my freshman year. I thought, oh, there's the GPA. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I understand that happens. So it's only so much, pushing you can do. Again, it's the age level of thinking.
And can I just add to that, the other thing that you did, I think having a principal, an assistant principal, and the same 2 guidance counselor take kids from 6th, 7th, and 8th causes real synergy and belonging and knowing families. And I think that's an important factor. And all those families we had over a dozen kids who actually showed up at Fitch High School for weeks to complete that task. So those families, and some of the parents didn't sign up on time, but they showed up on the first day, and we got them in, not the first day, the second day. We got them back and got them in, and I was very proud that our parents took it so seriously as well. That family engagement is critical.
To piggyback on that, Keith, I don't know if you want to speak to, you shared at our sort. Keith has been through a full cycle, 6th, 7th, 8th, and now he's back at 6th again. And just those connections that you already have with families coming in the door, 7th grade, 8th grade, allows you to have difficult conversations with much more ease.
Trust.
And
That's
trust
what I
is the
saw,
key.
the
Trust
trust.
is the key.
That's what I saw, yeah, or I see.
Any other questions? Ian?
Not so many questions, maybe a couple, but mostly just some comments. I just wanted to follow up on that and just commend you on that innovation as far as creating like a cohort, principals, admins, support staff following the students through. I think that's great. And building the continuity of care and like you said, trust. Being familiar with someone over a period of time definitely can help. Back to some data questions. But first off, thank you everyone, and I apologize for being late. I was tracking the presentation on the way in. But back to the data, is there some way when we're doing the snapshot to capture some sense of the duration of time that multilingual learners have been with the district? You know, if they are like, you know, a certain percent of new arrivals, you know, I mean, obviously it's not going to be accurate to the moment, current to the moment. It's going to be kind of, you know, a general sense, you know.
That's something certainly that's data we could certainly mine.
Okay.
For sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And that might even be a nice presentation the board would like to see district-wide about the story of our multilingual learners, because now we're really close to being a bilingual school. I know that we have, Mystic River is considered bilingual.
We are as well.
You are too. It's the amount of Spanish-speaking or any one language in a school, and now Fitch too. So, you know, our numbers have increased, and we're working towards having teachers have more tools in their toolkits who are working with the kids every day, not just the tutors for EL or MLL or the teachers, certified teachers. We want everybody. So
and-
there's a lot of professional development that needs to continue along that line.
Agree, and we are so fortunate to have Cheryl Townsend help guide us through that work.
Yeah, she's
She's
the real
run us light
expert.
years in a very short amount of time, and we've got many more steps to take, but we're on that journey now.
I see Lauren would like to respond to that as well.
Sure, yeah.
Our data manager.
Lauren,
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on, I believe
can
it
you
was Ian's
speak up
question.
a little bit so we can hear you? I don't know, for some reason I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
No?
Is there a microphone? Or?
Yep.
Try it now, Lauren.
Hello?
Yeah, now you're better.
Okay, that's okay. I just wanted to follow up on Ian's question. So yes, we can identify how long the students have been with us when they took the exam. Out of the 43 students that are identified as ML students at Groton Middle School, 10 of those students were with us for less than a year. So that's just a quick snapshot. But yes, to answer your question, we can get that information. We have that information.
Thank you. Appreciate that. In fact, a positive comment, since we're talking about multilingual learners, I just wanted to commend the use of that term. I think that is far more as a positive term, and it's more expansive and inclusive in the sense of, you know, we're not just bilingual.
Absolutely.
Are we?
No, we're not.
And also, you know, it doesn't put a qualifier on which language is like expected to be predominant. I mean, people should feel comfortable speaking their own language, you know, however they feel, you know, in the community.
We want them to become proficient
Yeah.
in English.
Of course.
They should still be very proud and of their heritage
Right.
and their ability to speak their native language.
And as soon as they come to us, we actually assess them for the seal of biliteracy. So it's really, to me, something that's very optimistic and very rewarding, that kids come with another language and then will learn our language, and sometimes we'll learn a third language.
Shouldn't it be the seal of multiliteracy then?
It could be, yes, it should be.
What about
I
if
think-
you're just bilingual?
I know, that's the name of it, but I think you're right.
Two is
Yeah.
more than one.
Yeah,
Which
that's
is
right.
multiple.
Yeah.
So,
Multi-
multi covers it all.
Yeah, I like that. I'll bring that to the State Department. Said it was your idea.
Quick question, with the staff surveys, overall percentage of engagement, as far as like the staff, I missed the number. Was that in the presentation as far as?
Probably
No, that's from a few months ago.
A few months ago.
Oh, okay.
I just
Yeah.
have weird
yeah.
things of remembering.
Got it.
There were 78. I don't know.
78%, was that the,
In terms of your staff, I looked it up.
And in terms of the number of participants in the survey?
yeah? About 78% of the staff participated?
78.
70 participants,
Oh,
so I wouldn't say that's 70%, that's probably closer to 60%.
60%. Thank you.
Pretty good, pretty good remembering that figure.
I think I need to check your number. I think we have more than 135 on the district.
So out of middle school staff, 60% responded to the survey?
I would say, I mean, I would have to go back and look, but I believe it's
Roughly.
pretty much where we were. And
Okay.
we're remarking, having a conversation about year over year, where that seems to be pretty much the number.
We do really well when we designate part of a faculty meeting maybe the first part, not the last part, to doing it and giving them time, we do get better results with that. And so sometimes I think in the spring, we just have to set that up for everybody. Set that time
That would be good
available.
practice.
Yeah, that'll give us better results, for sure.
Definitely always, the more the better.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
Because you always
yeah.
wonder, is there a silent majority out there? Or are we getting just the squeaky wheels, or those who, so, but your point is well taken.
I think you may have already mentioned a couple of these things, but I was just hoping to ask if there's any, from top of mind, any examples of any adaptations or accommodations or improvements towards operations or just, overall, how the schools run, that was developed due to like teacher or student input from the surveys?
I would say that those 4 areas of focus were absolutely 100% generated by the teachers. And we actually, we got them into small groups. The Safe School Climate Committee got together in the summer, 2 summers ago, and really took a hard look at that data. I presented it to start the year. It was not good data. It was not something that I was proud of, but darn it, I want the school to be a place where people want to come to school. And so those were the hard facts. And we got the staff in the small groups, and they identified, they're the ones that identified the areas for focus and some of the things that specific steps that we were able to take.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, that's a good example.
Every data point had an action step, and so that we could show exactly what was done and where we're at. So like, I think we put it in green and red.
Right.
We know exactly what we've done and what
Yeah.
we still need to do.
Excellent, excellent, yeah. Monitor and adjust,
Right.
of course. Let's see, overall percentage of students that are in the MYP program?
100.
100, okay, so, and so I may have missed that too, that's a mandatory part of the curriculum?
It's how we teach it, right? So
okay.
it's built in to the approach of how we teach that curriculum. Now, when I say 100% of our students are part of our NYP program. But I'll go back to the point I made earlier about needing to have some of our teachers who are new to us in the last
Have
4
more training.
years be trained.
Okay.
They have the units of study, which were developed by, collaboratively by their colleagues, and they may have had input as well, depending on when they arrived, but really having them have
Continuous.
that expertise
Yeah.
is going to be helpful.
So is there a certificate that comes with MYP program completion at 8th grade?
There's not a certificate per se, but there is a project that they do at the high school
Okay.
as they finish up their sophomore year.
And
that-
there's a potential project for 8th grade as well.
Right,
That would be a
project.
service project
Right.
in which we're contemplating.
And that would connect up with the IB program in high school? And that would support someone who is pursuing an IB diploma?
Any IB, I mean, it goes, middle years goes all the way through 10th grade. So it really lifts the rigor and relevance so that they can take these other higher level courses.
Middle years goes through 10th grade?
Yep, 6 through 10.
Okay, thank you. And so, are there any high-level courses that, in the middle school that are not MYP?
No.
No, it's all just completely coded in? Okay.
We do have advanced math in 7th, and we have how many algebra, honors algebra courses in 8th?
How many sections?
How many sections? Do we have 5?
I think we're at 5 right now. 5, yeah.
But those are also MYP.
As far as after-school programs, are there, this might be more for the superintendent, are there certified ELA math staff that are there to support after-school programs for the students? far as the-
So it's based on the teachers who apply. We certainly do have math and ELA teachers who do apply. We also last year had some tutors who had, were strong in math or strong in ELA, so they applied as well. Right now, we're looking and hoping to get 6 tutors. Sort of.
Okay.
And we're looking at the state, which says that the rollout has to end by January. So we actually have some Alliance folks coming to town, so I'm going to try to push to have those tutors continue till the end of the year.
High dosage.
Because by the time we got it started, high dosage,
So
yeah.
what we're actually talking about is the after.
The after school, right.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, definitely moving into budget season, I would encourage, your administration to, give us the ideal state.
That's what
And-
we've told them,
Yeah.
that you want.
Let's get there. And even if we don't make it this time, let's know where we have to get to. Similar to what you were saying before, you assess, you monitor, you hear the feedback, even if it's hard facts, that gives you something to go on. So, same here. So, and I just wanted to, again, commend, I think, Mr. Bass, Principal Bass, that was you, mindful of barriers.
Maybe
Oh, no.
Mr. Davis brought that
Oh,
up.
yeah, was that Mr. Davis? Mindful of barriers, but carry high expectations. Appreciate that. Yeah. And, no, supportive, sorry, I got my notes reversed. Is supportive accountability.
Yes.
That was your phrase. Yeah, I like that.
Both
And-
very good.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that there is a plan, at least on paper, that we could expand the learning space at the school.
The architects designed it, so I was talking with Dr. Grenier a couple weeks ago, and he believed that the architects designed it so that they could extend the wings out to where the U-shaped, if you're familiar with the school, if you're facing the main office, to the left side of the school, there is a U-shaped driveway for our small buses, that it could extend out through there. So, should the state come through with some grant money, or, I know budgets are always
Or the
tough,
federal
right?
government.
Again,
Allegedly, according to Dr. Grenier, the architects designed it so that it would be easily expanded.
ideals to aspire for. Goals. All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'll recognize Dean, and then is there anyone else after that? Okay, so Dean?
Yeah, I just thought of a question hearing the other discussion. So when you break out, so high needs students that group includes, quote, multilingual learners. And just as a side note, I really don't see bilingual as somehow exclusive. Most of these people actually are bilingual. Some maybe tri or quadrilingual, but literally we're talking about mostly bilingual people, but I'll leave that aside for a second. The purpose of including bilingual or multilingual learners in this category of high needs is that English is not only not their first language, but that they're not proficient enough in English to be able to tackle the course matter, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Or the
So-
test.
the test or even just regular schoolwork in general. But I recognize that you're also, you're going by test scores. That's just, one of the icebergs. And I heard that of the 40-odd, maybe a fifth to a quarter are recent arrivals. That would mean that the other ones are not. So when I heard that, I was curious. I thought, okay, so how long have the other ones been in our school system? And so that when we say multilingual or bilingual or whatever you want to call it, do we continue to recognize students who have maybe gained sufficient proficiency in English, but English still remains their second language? So that they will always be considered bilingual, they will always be considered multilingual, whichever way you choose, even though they've achieved sufficient English proficiency. Do we track them that way, or
We
do we
do.
just? So that group could include students who actually are proficient in English?
No.
Okay.
So, on an
Once they're
annual
proficient.
basis, they take a test called the Lost Links.
Oh, okay.
It speaks to their,
Okay, so that's what
and
that is.
that is what qualifies them for multilingual services. And once they're out of it, they no longer are in that category.
Right, even though English may technically be their second
Correct.
language. I mean, I don't know whether my first language is Yiddish, Greek, or English, but. Yeah, you should hear it.
Yeah, clarifications.
Actually, once they test out, I believe that they're still in that category for 2 years.
For 2 years.
Oh, really? Okay,
Thank you for your expertise.
interesting.
So for specifics, there are 29 students currently receiving ELL coaching right now at Groton Middle School. Between
Which would explain, yeah.
coaching 1 and 2 and 3.
I'm sorry, what was that number again?
29 students
29,
currently receiving ELL coaching. And that's, like I said, coaching 1 or 2 and 3.
And just so you sign up, that's close to double what we had last year.
I think we had
Is that it, Dean?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Pregnant
So,
silence.
I'll recognize Adrian, and then if there's nobody else, we'll go to Matthew.
All right, as far as the staffing, how much staff turnover has there been in the last 2 or 3 years, and is that affecting performance for, maybe certified staff, and then also non-certified?
So, trying to think of the number that we lost from last year. We had some retirements.
Yep.
We also had, thinking of one that left to go to a different school, teach a different subject with their own classroom this year.
And closer to
Closer to home, yeah. So it's difficult to give you a concrete answer with regard to the impact. My philosophy always is you never want to settle when you're hiring. That philosophy is something I'll stand by, but I will tell you that the challenge is the applicant pool has shrunk dramatically for teaching. So we've been fortunate to be able to bring in really quality folks, even when there is turnover. Actually, we lost another one I just thought of mid-year who took a more specialized position in another district. Yep. So I'm thinking specifically of the core areas. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's a large amount of turnover in the certified, but any still can be impactful.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that. I think I actually, on the Groton Facebook site, Matthew posted an article that was just written that talked about, how we value education and how really education dollars haven't really increased with everything else. Overall funding, but also teacher salaries and maybe when you put too much on teachers, like give them all 24 kids and, like their salaries don't increase, although the contribution to benefits may, over the years, over 20 years, that starts to have an effect on things. But yeah, so, that's good to hear. It doesn't sound like there was, like significant teacher turnover for, I guess, what is there? There's 120 staff in the building or something like that?
Yeah, we have approximately, say, about 90 certified staff.
All right.
And, we're still, at this point, we still have a vacancy that we're trying to fill. certified
World
vacancy.
languages have been really difficult.
my
There are
goodness,
certain areas that have been
Yes.
so difficult.
Special education, world
Special ed,
language.
yep. Speech pathology.
And what's amazing to me is that even social studies now is considered to be a shortage area by the state. I remember the days where you get 40 applications for a social studies position.
It has been challenging on our teaching profession the past several years.
There's been shifts in the college programs too, which make it hard. UNH cut their program, which was a huge teaching program in the area, that it just makes it more difficult to find those candidates.
All right, well, thank you. So, and then to get kind of into the data, the big one that sticks out is math. As a school, obviously, we're not anywhere near where we want to be. What are I know you went over, the steps that you're going to take going forward, and some of those I remember were similar to last year. Like I remember the comment on Dreambox that it works, but it doesn't seem like it's showing that it works as far as, progress, because I think we're essentially flat or maybe a little bit below last year, correct? In math?
So what I would point, one thing that I'd point out is that these students that took the test last year are different than the ones the year before, for a third of them at least. But what I would say is that our focus is more refined. When the results became available to us this summer, Mr. Davis went in and he took a very close look at which areas within the SBAC our students fell down the most, were most challenging, and specifically went in and said, okay, these are the IABs that we are going to focus on for this year. Here's where they align in the curriculum. Here's when they're going to be given, administered, and then the opportunity to have the data team review that work moving forward. One thing that I would point to, I think I'm curious to see, because Dreambox is supposed to give us data on the correlation between number of lessons completed and how they did in the exam.
And performance in Dreambox. And that
Right.
we have seen a direct correlation with successes in
Yes.
both.
What I would point to is that seventh grade growth was pretty remarkable. I think that's a combination of their commitment to meet regularly and really work on the new instructional strategies that building thinking classrooms allow. But I know there was also a focus in seventh grade. Not that there was in sixth and eighth, but a real focus on Dreambox as well. So I think there are two things working there. And then we have the high dosage math tutoring. So it's not an exact science.
And statewide, sixth grade, for some reason, has always taken a dip, but we've seen more of it in the past several years, like a bigger dip. If you look at their cohort 3, 4, 5, and then 6, and then they come back up, a little bit. But, so that's something we're also investigating, and we want to get the sixth grade team of teachers more professional learning in mathematics.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them, right.
And we know of some upcoming workshops that we're
Yep.
Yeah.
let's do.
So when you said Dreambox 60 minutes, is that a week or? All right, so it's just a supplement to a program?
Yeah, it's not the whole program.
Right, no, it's absolutely a
Yeah,
supplement.
it's just, I go back to that because in the survey, the software survey, there was a lot of negative comments from teachers on Dreambox. And I just, like, if you were to ask your staff, are most of them, like, the large percentage of them behind that program and think it's a successful way to spend 60 minutes a week on math?
I'd have to go and ask them.
Maybe we should.
But what I point to is that I was looking at talking with a parent today, for a seventh grader, and went in and looked at her grades, and it's a weekly homework in seventh grade, so we're expected to complete a certain number of lessons over a week's time, and that's how they're utilizing it. Oftentimes is as a resource for them to supplement what's happening in the classroom. Other times, there are portions carved out of that 80 minutes for them to work on Dreambox.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to see, like, what in that survey, were we able to determine which grade levels were furnishing that information? Or was it very broad?
It was, I broke it down to some extent a long time ago, but it's been 6 or 7 months since I looked at that. I just put all the comments together, and most of them in Dreambox seem to be, negative towards it. That and Lexia, everybody loved Lexia, and it seems like we got rid of that. That I know was elementary, but separate. So I know that the time in school, we're paying teachers to teach, and if they're on a computer doing Dreambox program, is that the best use of our teachers' time and the students' time in school, if they can just do it out of school? I know it was something that worked really well through COVID, when we just didn't have that face-to-face time, but to me, I'd like to see what the teachers think about it, if they think it's a good use of time. And also, our scores, like, what's Killingly doing? They're, they're in our DERG. It seems like they likely have a similar demographic as us, and their math scores are phenomenally higher than ours.
Well, I know that Vernon, their superintendent, is a good friend and colleague of mine, and so we want to take a team to Vernon, and Vernon wants to come and visit us. So we definitely will be planning that this year.
Or, yeah, I'm sorry, not Killingly. It
Yeah, I
was,
was gonna
it was Vernon. Yeah, Killingly's actually, sorry, I don't want to say anything about Killingly.
I was a little confused.
But yeah, so Vernon, so yeah, I mean, we're, in the DERG at 6 to 8, well, that's ELA, but I think math was.
No, Vernon, and we're usually neck and neck, and sometimes we beat them out, so I'm a little competitive, and I tell Joe this all the time. So,
Yeah, well, it seems like a lot of them, but I mean, I would like to know if what we're doing isn't working, have we weighed other options, like major changes,
yep, we are
We've
doing
had
that now.
several discussions about
Yeah.
that. So yes, I think we are looking at what are those major things, right? What are other districts doing? How much time is invested at each subject area? Those are questions that we want to learn more about.
And
Yeah.
I'm very involved in the Connecticut Council of Leaders of Mathematics, and we actually have a membership to do this networking about 4 times a year. And so I do bring teachers and other administrators with me, but that is a great source of information right there, because you have all the leaders across the state. Leaders meaning they could be principals, they could be math coaches, they could be teacher leaders, so it's a wide variety of leadership in the, and state leadership there too, to find out what's happening, so.
I guess, kind of to go back to what Ian was talking about, or with what you need, or what's the biggest bang for the buck, I'm guessing it's staff. Is it tutors? In helping, I guess, the math, just because it's the lowest of where we need to be, but anywhere, in just looking at straight performance, what do you see that you could really use that would help the students and help the staff teach the students?
Well, I think as Mr. Davis spoke to, with the high dosage tutors that we have currently now with the grant, we are seeing impact, a positive impact, based upon the assessments that they're giving. So that piece, whether we can find the continuation through Alliance funds or however those funds come about, yes, I think that this is a model that through the state, they advise that we use, and this is a model that if we have the tutors that we want to continue to utilize going forward.
All right, did you notice a big difference this year not having them?
So we currently have them now.
Oh,
It
all right,
runs out end of January. The funds run out end of January.
all right.
So that is a high priority.
All right, well, thank you.
I just want to broaden that just a little bit. What about paraprofessionals in general? Are there areas of particular need? They're, of course, integral to how every school runs.
So we have quite a few vacancies. It's hard to find people to apply for those positions. I think right now we have 12 vacancies in our paraprofessionals. I'd have to recheck the numbers, but that is a challenge for us, being such a large school and needing so many paraprofessionals, or paraeducators, excuse me. It is challenging to find people to fill those roles. We were fortunate enough to be able to, some of our tutors moved into those positions, which was great, but that's still a pretty high needs area in special education. I think it's across the board.
It's across the state.
It's not, yeah, it's not just us, unfortunately. So we keep reposting, recruiting. Our HR department does a great job trying to get out to those fairs and get people to apply and meet with us, but that is a concern.
And I was just at that CABE conference, and one of the things some of the school systems talked about is growing from within, taking someone who's interested in taking that next level of education to fill specific roles is helpful long-term,
Yeah.
for sure. Thank you.
I do also want to note, I know we talk a lot about confines with our schedule, but the scheduling committee worked really hard this year to build a schedule where we could do that common planning for math. And unfortunately, we couldn't do it for math and ELA, so maybe next year we look at that. But, just making sure, it sounds easy, but it's very complicated in the sense you have to make sure that there's essentials classes and things like that, so kids have classes to go to. So that is something we may try to do for ELA. We just couldn't manage both this year.
Is that related to space or space and division?
It's just related to our schedule, right? We need classes for kids to be in. So if you have every single math teacher off at the same time, it does make it challenging. So to have every single math and ELA, that was possible.
All right, so I'm going to go back to Ian, and then we'll go to Matthew.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick follow-ups. So with teachers and staff that leave, is there any process of doing an exit interview? And
They do, with the
And-
HR.
And that happens, yeah, so is there any way that, I think, again, taking a look at hard facts, I think it would be beneficial, just myself as an individual board member, but, having worked with this board a while, I can imagine I'm probably not the only one that would be interested in reviewing those. To some extent that they can relate to operational, shortcomings or, areas where, maybe if the teacher, or maybe compensation or benefits, something that, would give us something to work with is, recruitment and retention. How do we recruit and how do we retain the talent of teachers and educators and support staff that we want to have in the district?
I would say that
Should there be
typically,
some process of anonymizing those and kind of scrubbing out any personal information that would be impactful beyond just the objective assessment of, was there a deficiency in pay? Was there a deficiency in benefits? Was there, problems with class sizes? Were there disagreeable environmental factors that we could accommodate for somehow?
and HR usually will ask if they can share the information, especially if it's something that would help inform the school, the principal, me. And there are times that does get shared, but oftentimes they'll want that in confidence. But, so we do ask if we can share the information, especially if it's something that would give us knowledge to make things better.
Right.
So,
Well, I would say, I definitely would ask, the administration to consider that any time that you do get information that someone says, please do share, please do share that with the board, so that we can try to come up with ways to, better recruit and retain. To that end, there's a comment that paraprofessionals, it's a struggle across the state. Have we, in our research, tried to seek out anywhere, like what districts, maybe in this state for one, but also just in the region? Any states, or any districts in any states that maybe are achieving closer to ideal of like what we would like to get to? And, trying to pull in or do a study of what they do, how they do. Any thought of that?
we've discussed it in our superintendent's group, and especially in this Learn area, it's been a challenge for all of us. Nobody has the secret ticket. I think when we had our BESSER funds, some districts were paying more, but then they couldn't sustain that. So they got a slew of them at that time, but then they're in the same place we are now. It's really hard. It's difficult, challenging.
Well, and before you could pull in applicants who maybe wanted teaching positions but couldn't get them right away. So they would become paraeducators to get that experience, but now we're even struggling to find those people, right, who want to be
Right.
certified staff. So it is very, very difficult.
Right, and, it's interesting to note, because a lot of the comments, I've heard over the past, couple of years, and, as far as like struggling to find good teaching talent and retain them. I'm oddly reminded of having been on the RTM and been in attendance of a number of town council meetings and hearing police officers, the police chiefs, talk about the struggles for them to recruit and retain officers. And I just think there's an interesting parallel. I do think, actually, I shouldn't, I do think schools are, the front line of public safety.
Right.
A well-educated public, people who feel hopeful and optimistic and feel like they have a positive pathway in life, are far less likely to engage in risky behavior or harmful behavior. So, it's just an interesting parallel. I just wanted to kind of note that and let people kind of sit with that for a while. The software survey that we discussed earlier, is that a thing that's shared with site administrators? And
We
Is that,
typically
like,
do it every year.
debriefed?
We look at
Discussed?
usage, we look at software surveys from the staff point of view. So that's something we do kind of annually in preparing for the budget.
So we can get that.
in the comments?
We can get that
part
for
of
the budget.
Yeah, we'll do that
Process.
again.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it actually today.
Yeah, we should do that again.
And as far as like the achievement on Dreambox, there's 60 minutes a week. What's the general process? I mean, as far as like, assessing how well the kids really incorporate what they're doing versus just kind of, pushing through the lessons somehow to accomplish the time.
Well, they're more than the 60 minutes. They're trying to get at least 5 to 7 lessons completed. It's about the completion of the lessons, and it adapts to their level in mathematics, and then it takes them forward. It goes all the way through algebra.
And this is designed and implemented in such a way that it's supplemental to the...
Yes.
So there's parallel instruction happening in the classroom?
Sometimes it's parallel, sometimes it's adaptive. So we do both. The teachers do both. And sometimes they use it as a model of instruction, showing them a problem to solve
All
and
right.
how they would solve it.
And how long has Dreambox been on board with the district?
Since our 2015 #1 math DODEA, we were the first one selected
Okay.
out of all the grants.
And is there any effort to, or I don't know, maybe the data already exists, but tracking the progress towards mastery along like cohorts or individuals, year to year, instead of doing a snapshot of just 1 year to see how 6th grade is doing this year?
Right, we do have,
Taking 6th, 7th, and 8th and seeing how well they, because over years, some students may have a better year than others.
that's what the cohort does and the growth model does. It's hard to have an exact cohort, and because we're a military district, we have kids moving in and out, and they're not all in states that have Connecticut or core standards. They might have different kind of core standards. They don't all take SBAC, but if they're moving from place to place within our state, they're still considered a cohort. As long as they took the SBAC from year to year, we can still measure their progress. But for some military kids, if they're in Hawaii or they're in Washington State or Virginia, they don't have that ability to track them.
Okay.
Mind if I just say something on that? I mean, Lauren could just take the military kids out of the equation to see how successful it is, right?
Yeah, she does it both ways. She'll look at them specifically as a cohort as well, if
Yeah.
they've been with
But
us.
we could kind of correct for the transientness
Yeah.
and see how it's working with the kids that we've had for 3 or more years
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. So that data is available.
Well,
it's
the
just not-
kids we've had, or the kids Norwich, New London had, and then we had. So they all take SBAC. So you can look at a cohort, but it won't be an exact cohort for just Groton. because it could be other kids who've taken the test in the state over time, and we're looking at that growth, but I can't take full credit for their successes, and I can't take full credit for their not succeeding as well, because we might have just had them for a year, but they were in other districts prior to that.
Along those lines, when I was on my way in, I believe it might have been Mr. Davis talking about interim assessments that were happening throughout the school year. And we've talked about a dashboard. One of the K people were here, and that's one of the things we're looking at is how can we better track progress towards mastery in a more real-time fashion, not aggregated with other districts, and not having to wait 18 months to review the data. The interim assessments that you all do, is that something that can be dovetailed, or how quickly can data be extracted from that as far as,
Instantaneous.
yeah, okay. So that's one way we could kind of do periodic snapshots in a way building on what's already being done, not asking to add more tasks, but just, take a look at the outcomes.
This year, it's intentional, and in terms of which IEBs we're giving, aligned with where they are in the curriculum, and it's also intentional that we're doing it with fidelity.
Okay.
It's not optional.
And teachers are definitely using this data and going back and looking at that to inform their instruction, so that's
Right.
also intentional practice.
Oh, yeah.
So one thing that you need to know about the math IABs, though, because I'm very familiar with these, is that unlike like the English language arts ones, is that the math ones will not allow to, unless they take the same one multiple times, will not allow you to show progress over time. So math really aligned to specific unit concepts. So I don't have math background, but maybe, for example, in 7th grade, they might give ratios and percentages. That's a specific IAB, and it may be aligned to what they're doing in the 7th grade classroom in a particular unit, unless they take that one again, which is, it depends on how the teachers do that. It's not likely that you do that multiple times because they take that as a part of, like, again, an end of unit assessment, or after as a quiz, after they've done that particular unit of study. It's very difficult in math to gauge progress over time, because like in ELA, the curriculum spirals. It's very easy to say, okay, students learn about theme, and that's something that comes up reoccurring during the year. So you can give the ELA IAB at any point and understand how the students are progressing with that. But because math, those concepts are like occur, at different points during the year. Do you see what I'm saying or following about how the math and the ELA are a little bit different? It's something that, I've wrestled with the IABs. Certainly, I've given them in the past, and I feel that they're very, very valuable. I've read the study from the State Department of Ed that was released in 2020. I do buy into the fact that when students take 4 or more, they improve on Smarter Balanced, but they don't work in the same way as the ELA ones. And certainly, you can use the data. You can follow it on the Smarter Balanced site. You don't need a separate dashboard. It's right there for you, but it doesn't, just note that they don't work in the same way as the ELA ones do.
And the important work, though, is the work of the teacher. When they analyze the data and they see, the data points and where they were at, even on the SBAC that was given once a year, and then what they've done in the classroom with their quizzes and tests and their work in their classroom, and then what's still needed. Where are their strengths? Where are their weaknesses? What do I need to reteach? Maybe I need to teach a lesson on fractions over and over again, or a different way, to the whole class, or maybe a part of the class, or a small group. So that's the real work with those, is that work with the teacher and the student based on the data and informing their instruction and what they need to do. What are their next steps?
Absolutely right.
Well, thank you for all that. Definitely, I'll take a look at the Smarter Balance website and take a closer look at those IEBs. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could be just a matter of, the different lenses to look at the way, because while like there's levels of math that there's certain problem-solving techniques that do reoccur, over the years.
You could look at them. I've worked extensively with Ajit from the State Department of Ed, and so I'd like to see, what you come up with.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, and I know Jen wants to go, and Matthew. Was that it for you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Jen?
Sorry, just one
Yep.
last question. DE and I, right, like, how diverse is our workforce?
Well, that's, yeah, we're going to get a presentation on that.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
let's worry about that.
yeah, I just don't know if we have time to untease all that tonight.
No, that's fine.
But we do have
That's fine.
a committee, so yeah, and it's on our, actually on our referral list. Yeah,
That should be a
Yeah.
quick answer for Peter. How diverse is your workforce?
How diverse is it? It's not an easy answer.
No, wait, yeah.
All right.
It's not, because,
Diverse comes in lots of ways.
exactly right.
Ah,
Right,
okay.
right? And so it depends on how I define it.
yeah, first we have to define it.
Yep.
And we have a lot of
We
data,
have a long discussion on that.
yes. All right, Matthew?
Thank you. Well, typically, I get a packet on Friday. I look at it, and my question is, can I deal with that Monday and spend 5 or 6 or 7 hours on Monday? Do I have enough time to deal with it so that I can do other stuff? Not this week. Not this week. I was up Friday and Saturday nights, and then again Sunday night with Valley and saying to me, what's bothering you? And the answer was, I'm stunned. I was stunned. I guess the first thing I want to do is congratulate you on what you did. Thank you very much. The first thing I want to do is congratulate you on the work you did on absenteeism reduction. I'm interested in two things on that, what your goal is for the next year, and what you can teach our other schools, how you can teach whatever techniques you use so we can replicate the good work you've done in that around the district. There's no answer needed now. You can let me know later about the thing. So I did what Matthew does. I spent the better part of 2.5 days wrestling with the data, trying to understand the data as well as I could, and wrote too much. You'll be pleased to know I reduced my 4.5 pages to 2 pages. And I have the gracious offer from one of my colleagues that I can use her 5 minutes as well. I will take 5 to 7 minutes if the chair will allow me. I'm not an extemporaneous speaker like some of my colleagues, so please bear with me. To say I'm disappointed with the student academic achievement at Groton Middle School is at the politest understatement I can make. But what I'm saying is really not Groton Middle School by itself. We have the same problem replicating throughout our district. I'm deeply distressed by the student performance data. I'm fearful to the consequences to the adult lives of the hundreds of Groton students. We use percentages. I've translated them into numbers. They are hundreds and hundreds. And I'm angry at myself as a board member, as well as at the system for having allowed this situation to continue. But let me be clear, what we see in Groton is part of a national problem. This is not a Groton problem, and anybody who listens to us and thinks that we're talking about a Groton problem is sadly mistaken. While aggravated by COVID, it's been part of the educational landscape for more than a decade, these levels of achievement. Our board can't cure the national problem. Our superintendent can't cure the national problem. We can't, as a board, do it, and our talented teachers, non-certified staff, and support professionals can't solve the national problem. But one thing is clear to me. If we do in the future what we've done, what we'll get is what we've gotten. ELA, And I looked at it compared 22 to 23. These are the numbers that did not meet state minimum standards. 55% in 22, 23, 53% this year. 68% in math, we've improved to just 67%. 53% in NGSS, we've increased the number of people who've not met minimum standards this year to 56%. That means 459 students in ELA, 578 middle school students in math, 151 students at middle school in NGSS, and my heart cries. Each one of them, each child, each boy, each girl, each adolescent, we're not doing what we all want to do. And I'm not seeking to find blame, I'm seeking to find how we stop doing what we've done in the past so we don't replicate the past and we can move forward. It's not the students who fail but us. We're the Board of Education. We're the ones who set policy. Every student who meets or exceeds is our success, and everyone who doesn't is our failure. Metrics. I keep hearing we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and I don't hear or the other people who've spoken metrics. We're going to go from, we went from 26 to 20% in gross terms of absenteeism, and we did great. That is terrific. Next year, we're going to aim for, you fill in the blank. I'm not operations, but I need to hear what the goals are, not just in absenteeism, but every goal. What is the goal we're working for? We talk in generalities. Metrics. Well, there's a minor numerical improvement. It's within the statistical margin of error, and that sums out is no significant improvement. I haven't gone back through a full decade, but I'll bet we'll see a consistently stagnant picture. What's particularly troubling to me is that all those failing to meet state standards disproportionately, overwhelmingly skew out to our at-risk students. I'm looking at page 7, ELA performance by needs. More than double. You know this, I'm not making it up. We owe every kid, regardless of whether he or she has an intact family, regardless of whether he or she has a disability, we owe a better job to these people. And I'm not criticizing the teachers, and I'm not criticizing the human beings in front of me, because I know you work hard. We've got to find something new and different. An argument is made that somehow performance outcomes are less important than growth. It's not completely wrong. Sometimes a cognitive, physical, or emotional impairment is a limiting factor. I get it. In such cases, growth is a wonderful measure of progress. But I don't believe that 50% or more of our students fit into this category. Arguing that we can find solace using the growth metric rather than the achievement metric is, I sorrowfully conclude, denial of the reality facing us. So there's nothing wrong with your proposed action plan. It seems little different than the last year's action plan, which I saved. Maybe things would have been worse without it, last year's plan. But in my humble opinion, the larger foci of both plans didn't and probably won't significantly move the needle on academic achievement. If we do what we did, we'll get what we got. It doesn't trouble me that education is expensive. What troubles me is that for all the federal, state, local, and grant funds that come our way, we seem trapped, I chose that word, in a non-productive resource utilization model. We must rethink focusing on core competencies across the K-12 continuum. Our stated mission is teaching and learning, and it's fine as far as it goes. But anyone who's built a curriculum, and if I'm wrong, then I need to go out and shoot myself, because that's what they taught me at school. I'm sorry. I'm very emoted about this stuff, because I know you care, and I know we're stuck, and we need to get unstuck. We start with intended learning outcomes. Only then do we build sequential knowledge acquisition steps to get from where the students are to where we need them to be, where they need to be. Let's redeploy our resources. Continuing our expiring high-dose tutoring, I wrote this before I knew about the fact that we're going to get some more money.
Well, we're going to work on it.
We're going to work on it. Well, even if we don't get it, we need to expand high-dose tutoring in math and figure out what we need to do in the other subject areas Providing 30 minutes or more of concentrated tutoring in school 3 times a week has proven its worth. I sat in at the CABE conference, I sat in with the folks who are responsible for our program, and they had wonderful things to say about high-dose tutoring in Groton. And they told me that most of the kids jumped at least 1 quartile, some 2 quartiles, and I think we had one that jumped 3 quartiles, from the bottom quartile to the top quartile. This stuff works, but it's not free. With kids coming from many backgrounds with differential needs, only by hiring more tutors can we reinforce classroom lessons so our students at the very least pass the minimum standards. Maybe we can better share our students' reality with town council, the RTM, and our taxpayers. Maybe they'll be receptive to the imperative of preparing the next generation to successfully assume its responsibility. Or maybe not. Maybe we can get more grants, or maybe not. Maybe we'll have to just redeploy staff resources by reducing the breadth of our high school offerings, or partnering with other districts, or using distance learning to make upper-level courses available. Technology can be an ally, but GPS's greatest asset remains our teachers and staff. I have confidence they, along with administration, can help us. And I wrote in here later, our portable classrooms could relieve pressure until our addition becomes attainable. It is not an attainable thing in the foreseeable future. We can't wait for that to happen. I don't have the answers, you know that. And I'm mindful that the board is only in charge of policies. The superintendent is in charge of operations. But as we're in the process of working with Superintendent Austin on defining her goals for the coming year, this is an opportune time to cease rationalizing poor academic performance. And that is what I feel, where I'm hearing some of it, it's rationalization. And instead collaborate with her and with you and with our faculty and our paraprofessionals. Collaborate with her on charting a more productive course forward. We can't alter America's educational predicament. We can, however, change and improve our tiny corner of the world. So I ask my colleagues to critique me where you feel I'm wrong, and to prepare your own recommendations so we and the superintendent can collaborate to shift our course. Thank you for tolerating me so long. And I would love feedback from you guys if you have any.
I think you strike at the crux of what drives us all. And that we really struggle with the fact that the scores aren't where we want them to be. The achievement levels aren't where we want the students to be. And you're right, this is not just a Groton issue, but we're not giving up hope that our efforts can't make a difference, because we believe that they can. And sometimes, unfortunately, it takes time. It takes time over a period of, unfortunately, years for us to gain the footholds that we need instructionally for our students to see those gains. And as I mentioned earlier in our presentation, or in the questions and comments, we believe we are at the point now. Look, we've struggled just to tread water, to get our students to come to school, to get our students to be in class. COVID was a major. The fact that our kids stayed home and so many stayed out, and the mindset of families turned to survival rather than, in many cases, overtook the importance of school and education. I think that we are just about beyond that, and we are let's go. We need to move and get back to where we were at least pre-COVID. And I'm encouraged by what I'm hearing from teachers. I heard from 6th grade teachers this year, they couldn't believe how the students came in this year from 5th grade. in terms of their engagement and their willingness and wanting to learn. 7th grade. Now, sixth grade teachers, I think, in some instances couldn't believe that they were talking about the same students that they had last year. 7th graders at the start of this year said, 6th graders, that we actually had at our October faculty meeting, we had 7th grade teachers commending 6th grade teachers for the work that they did to prepare them for 7th grade. They're seeing it. They're seeing the change, the transformation back to what they believe, back to why they got in the business. And I would say that COVID was a crippling blow that I hope that as a nation we can recover from in terms of, as Ian referred to, with the police, with the teaching profession. I'm hoping that we get back to getting caring, creative, and smart folks back into saying, you know what, this is a profession for me because it's worthwhile. It's worth the time, it's worth the effort. So I agree with you in terms of the extreme frustration. And I understand where you're coming from with regard to if we continue to do the same old, then we're going to end up with the same result, right? But I'm hopeful that as we continue, that we're going to turn this corner. And we're going to see some of the, I was really hoping this year that we would see 5-7% gains across the board in terms of the benchmark standard. I'm encouraged, and I hear you say that, you know, that for there may be 50% who are cognitively impacted where the growth is important. The growth model is important because it helps drive the benchmark over time. Having students aware that, as the state puts it in their literature on the state website about the growth target, it is a ambitious but achievable target. All right, so it's not a dumbed down version, if you will, of taking a look at student achievement. We recognize that if a student makes their growth target, it may not get them the benchmark, but they've learned. They've learned, in many cases, more than a year's learning in a year's time. The state will only measure up to 110% of a student's growth target before they say, well, we're going to cap it there. In many cases, they go beyond that. So while I understand your sentiment with regard to the growth target model, I believe it's still an important piece that will help get us and help us measure getting, without seeing it immediately at the benchmark, it will get us to that benchmark.
It's not for us to tell you what to do. That's Susan's job. But I'm hoping that you will consider setting targets, articulating targets. And if we fall short, we fall short, but we have a target and we have a marketing thing to our kids.
I think that's what Peter is saying, though, that these are student targets, and they are being actualized, and kids are understanding them and working towards them.
This past year, teachers sat down with their students and said, this is your growth target number. Here's what the amount you're expected to grow on this test.
And here's
we
how.
We set goals for our entire school in terms of, one, if you meet the benchmark or exceed it, we're going to celebrate that. 2, if you met your growth target or exceeded it, we're going to celebrate that. 3, we took a look at what the state numbers were, roughly 60% achievement. Said, look, sometimes we know you work hard in life to reach a goal and you don't quite make it, but you still put a heck of a lot of effort into it. So we said, even for those who make 60% or better, we're going to celebrate that. So we're looking to build that culture of success and academic success. And those were some of the steps we took last year that we're continuing to this year.
Well, I do thank you all.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments.
So I've been on the board for a few years now, and I don't think there's ever been a board that was completely thrilled with the results of this inherently flawed standardized testing program. Most people agree that standardized testing is inherently flawed. It doesn't take, it's not equitable, And it's just an easy way to create a scorecard so we can compare ourselves, for example, to the other DIRGs. But we do continue to wring our hands over this very flawed product instead of looking at the children. And thank God we have dedicated teachers who are looking at the individual children and working on their growth and are not beaten down by a flawed system of standardized testing. Now, if we do want to play the game, you know, you moved from fifth position to third position in the DIRG. I mean, if somebody, you know, wanted to find something positive, there's that. You did that in math and ELA. So, but, you know, let's face it, it's those professionals in the classroom that are doing the work and are making sure that those individuals are doing the growth that they're personally capable of. And that makes me wonder about Dreambox. While the students are on Dreambox, does that allow our certified staff to provide maybe more differentiated instruction to those who need the assistance?
It absolutely does, Jay. And
So-
as I visited Mr. Masterson's 7th grade class last year,
Right.
that's exactly what he was doing. He had station work happening where he was able to differentiate instruction while some were on Dreambox. He would rotate them through, and he would have specific targeted lessons for students.
Yeah, so I think we need more things like that that can allow those who are, can be making progress in one area while the teacher is helping to support those.
And to your point about our teaching staff, and to your point, Matthew, about people working hard, I can tell you that when, I'm not going to even say the grade level or the subject area, but when we sat with teachers at a particular grade level and shared the results, absolutely crestfallen. Took it so personally, and I said, listen, we're not sharing this information with you to say that you're bad teachers, because you're not. You're excellent teachers.
Yep.
But we need to know where we are and how we're going to change what's happening with our kids.
Yeah.
So they do care very
take it
deeply,
to heart.
and it's
We want the message to go forward. We appreciate them. This hand-wringing and this public concern about this flawed system is not fair to our teaching professionals, and so I disassociate myself with any of those comments. And I'm excited about this building, thinking classrooms. I think that's, and I've seen that in the, you know, anyone that's visited the schools sees how the students work in a classroom now versus when I was in school, and how they work in these small groups. It's a breath of fresh air. And I know the MYP framework has provided for that, and I'm interested in learning more about how the building thinking classrooms will help as well. So my message is thank you to the professionals that are in the trenches every day. It's easy for us to sit here and speechify on TV to an audience. However, we, we owe a debt of gratitude to those who are doing the work. So thank you.
And those driving the work, which is the team that we have before us.
we appreciate all of your support and your concern and your thoughtful comments and questions this evening.
Thank you. All right.
Peter,
And-
real quick, did you get away from differentiated instruction?
No,
Oh, okay. I got worried there.
no, Beth.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. I know
Thank
you all
you
have to
very
be up early
much.
tomorrow, so.
We really appreciate it.
Take a little stretch break or something.
Sure.
I'm going to rejoin online.
Okay.
I've got my chauffeur duties to do.
Oh, okay. All right, so what do you want to do? You want to
Thank you,
recess
guys.
for 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay.
Chauffeur carefully.
I don't care what Jason.
So we are in recess,
That's why I didn't say
Mark.
anything, because I was going to say the same thing.
Don't take questions.
Back from recess. And the next item on our agenda is discussion of special education offerings and programs. So I'm going to turn it over to Denise Doolittle.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
So tonight, I just wanted to, again, give an overview of the Pupil Personnel Department. Often we are referred to to as pupil personnel, because the department encompasses more than just special education. It encompasses all of those pupil services staff that support our students, in addition to the teachers, like the speech pathologists, the school psychologists, the OTs, the PTs, and the school counselors, and the social workers. So we have updated our numbers. We've gone up 1% from last year. We now have 20% of our students identified as receiving special education services in Groton, and that is a number that is climbing statewide as well. So one of the trends that we're watching is the fact, as a state, is the fact that statewide, our K-12 enrollment is declining overall, but our special education prevalence rate is rising. So that's not a good trend. It's definitely something that we want to be monitoring closely. So to just give a little overview of the program highlights, we have continued to have 6 integrated preschool classrooms. Those are classrooms that provide services to students who have a disability and are ages 3 to 5, as well as their peers, their role model peers. We have 11 intensive learning classrooms. This would be more specialized classrooms for students on the autism spectrum or students who have social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. Again, 7 social, emotional, behavioral classrooms. We have our transition program here at central office that many of you know now. We service students through the entire school year when they turn 22. So that can be many years for some of our students who really need to stay with us until 22, because then they go on to the Department of Developmental Services. We have an alternative educational program here at central office. We work very closely with Dr. Seekand, our medical advisor. We have this year, the board, as you're all aware, we've hired our own nurses and our own school health aides. So we've been working very closely with Sue Chappell, who's the nurse at Northeast Academy. She's our nursing supervisor, and she works really closely with myself and Dr. Seekand. She utilizes our float nurse, which I can't even stress how critical that float nurse position has been, helping out some of the bigger schools like Groton Middle, and covering for Sue, so Sue can get out to each school and meet with the nurse and meet with the health aide and support them, because we have 4 new nurses in the district. We have a new nurse at Groton Middle, at Thames River, at Sacred Heart, and I want to say one more. That must be it. Must just be 3 new nurses. Oh, we have a new float nurse. The float nurse is new, Brianna Dubon. So Sue has really been supporting them in a very comprehensive manner. We have Second Step, our social emotional learning curriculum. We have our mental health consultant, Dr. Wrightington, that Groton Middle alluded to this evening, who's working with some of the schools on their MTSS model. And we work very closely with all of our staff in terms of assistive technology. You can see our certified staff. We have 119.6 certified staff. We have 10.8 full-time FTE contracted staff. That consists primarily of OT and PT. We contract both of those staff roles from Learn. In addition to additional BCBAs, we contract from Learn. We do contract out for 1 certified nurse's aide for the Transition Academy, and we have 1 dyslexia specialist that we contract for. For non-certified staff, we have 272 staff. We have 198 paraeducators, that should read, that's the new term, and 11 registered behavior therapists. And I will say, this RBT program is a new initiative in the district. It is providing for highly trained support staff in our specialized classrooms for students on the autism spectrum. It is a higher paying position, and it does require a higher level of skill, but we have not had any trouble filling all 11 positions that we have in the district. So it's very exciting, and, you know, it's very fulfilling to see people who want to, in many cases, they want to go on to be BCBAs, so they want to continue to further their education in the field of behavioral science. We also have a new, on the upper right-hand side, we have a new supervisor of early childhood programs, Karen Hyatt. She's working very closely with our TK teachers, our pre-K, preschool teachers, and she's working on a presentation for the board to give you an update on Transitional K and our other early childhood programs. And then we did include some important points, just, you know, for information in terms of the students with disabilities in the state and in the district has increased. We have the number of preschool students screened last school year is 215. And we continue to experience an increase in our homeless students. And we'll be giving you an update on that on Friday in the board briefs. And, you know, really, what I'm hearing from families is the really unaffordable cost of housing in the region is a barrier to many families. And the primary support we provide these families is transportation. So it is costly because we have to contract with Curtin. As you know, if a family has lost their residence in Groton and they're living with another family member in New London or Stonington or Norwich or Waterford, or they're in a hotel or motel or a shelter, we share, Groton and the town that the family's living in share the cost to transport the children back and forth to school. And because our buses don't leave the district, we have to contract with Curtin or another livery vendor. So it does get costly. And I think at our last meeting, when Irene gave an update on the costs, and she referenced special education, it was really the transportation costs for the homeless students. So it's something we're monitoring. We did get several grants during COVID and shortly after COVID, but we have expended those funds. So that's really an overview of the department. I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, and just one additional comment before I pause. We do have several vacancies. We have, kind of related to the conversation with Groton Middle School, we have seen an increase in the competitive nature of some of the districts in our region. And we do currently have a school psychologist position vacant at Groton Middle. That's been very tough to find. We had only one candidate this summer that applied, and she has given her notice because the commute is just too much for her. And then we have a speech pathologist position at Charles Barnum, and we have a candidate who actually is going to be going to a final interview with Susan and Anne Marie. So we are able to fill that. But we've had several, several vacancies that we normally don't get in October and November. You know, normally we don't see vacancies start to crop up until maybe the springtime. So it is unusual that people are leaving in the beginning of the year. But we have seen several, and we have a couple from the summer that took us a while to hire. So, you know, we are definitely feeling the staffing, you know, shortage in southeastern Connecticut and in the state. But we are working at filling them. Again, we believe we have the speech position filled at Barnum. We have a school psychologist who's coming back to Groton Middle. She had left the district. She's coming back to sub. And if it works out, she's interested in applying for the position, and she's experienced. So her training time will be minimal. And then we have some candidates for the special ed teaching positions as well. So we're getting close to filling them all. But it is a new experience to be filling vacancies in October.
We've also been fortunate to have some recently retired special educators who've come back to serve their community, and
Yes.
I mean, we couldn't be more grateful to our retired teachers.
Absolutely.
They're filling in as tutors and long-term subs and substitutes, and they do come back. They want to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Anyone have any questions?
Matthew, don't forget to turn your mic on.
Sounds like Matthew has a
Yeah,
question.
I'm going to recognize Matthew, and then anyone else? Ian? Okay.
There's been some information in the media about possible future homeless displacements in the Midway Oval area. Do you have any further information about that you're able or appropriate to share?
I did just have a family from Midway Oval about 2 weeks ago, but other than that, no.
Okay.
No. That's the group that we met about at the
That's correct.
community center, right?
That's correct, yeah. Nothing new on that.
No, I think that they're coming up a little bit at a time as those houses, as their leases are running out, and they're not being renewed.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll recognize Ian, and then Jen.
Well, I may want to just defer to a little bit later to let other people speak, but I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. First and foremost, thank you for that. But moving forward, as far as looking at site budgets, as we move into that phase, will we be able to get a look at the special ed services per site specifically as we go to each site, as we look at each one?
So the
Will that be
budget,
broken out?
yeah, the budget is broken down by category. So the book doesn't have by site, but I know each school is submitting their budget, so the requests will come in by site.
Okay.
And I know we did discuss with Thames River and Mystic River, because they are our largest elementary schools, the need for potentially additional staffing in special education for resource. So I know that we're going to be putting in for that.
All right. Well, I would say the same thing as we said to, as I said and others have said to each site administrator is to, give us the ideal.
Okay,
All right. Let's, and give us something to work towards.
okay.
And, yeah, don't be shy. Be frank, and, we can, we'll
Okay.
let the community know what we need
Right.
and why. It's concerning to hear that homelessness is on the rise, but I'm not surprised to hear it. It's just profoundly disappointing. Sorry to hear that this steady, slow trickle continues.
Well, we did allocate part of our grant, when we received the homeless youth grant, we did allocate part of that to purchasing quite a good supply of winter coats, and they're good quality winter coats, and good quality backpacks. We have school supplies, water bottles, so when we talk to families, the first thing, especially now, no one's wanted a lot of winter coats because it's been so warm, but we always offer them any of those, supplies to help them, get through the cold months, or to even have school supplies for school.
And I know your mental health team is much aware of that, the counselors, the social workers, the school
Yes.
psychs, so that they are bringing that information back to the schools, and they know those students that are in need to let you know.
Yeah, and as soon as they're identified, they're eligible for free meals. So that's a big, burden off of the caregiver.
Okay.
Even the state legislation now says that if they haven't been paying their bills, that we need to really reach out to them and see what their needs are. So if if there's a school lunch balance, a certain amount, it's our responsibility to reach out to families to see what their needs are.
Right. And refer them to services.
Yep.
So, also, similar to other conversations, as far as people leaving the district, professionals that are departing the district or declining to take a position, you know, I think it would be good to capture some of that information as far as like reasons why. You know, again, looking at, you know, competitive pay, competitive benefits, how can we incentivize, you know, recruitment and retainment, and, you know, try to draw on the best talent that we can find.
Yeah, my experience in talking to the folks that are leaving is several have relocated. One, as I stated earlier, the commute was just too much for her. She found a position closer to home. And then another went to start a similar program like ours at NFA. So I think she might have been recruited.
There is a lot of that going on.
Well, let's find out what
I
they're
can't,
offering.
your own pipeline, but.
Well, that would circle right back to exactly like what I'm trying to get at here is, what are they being offered? What are they being offered that is, you know,
Right.
a better incentive than working
Right.
here?
It is very competitive for some of those specialty areas like speech pathologists,
Yeah.
physical therapists, and school psychologists. It is
Right.
very competitive.
And so that, you know, kind of circle for me, I mean, this is tangentially related, so I'll just say it quickly, is it does relate back to the health insurance conversation that we're currently involved in as well. So, as one of the benefit packages that we offer. So, with that, I'll you know, pass the mic, so to speak.
Jen?
This was just a quick one. When you're presenting, you had mentioned about the bus. Is it, if they become homeless, we provide the bus? I get that piece. But if the family chooses to leave the district because, let's say, rent here is $2,000, they could get it for $1,500, is that, because they chose to leave, do we pay for that bus or no?
So if a family leaves the district and they have a lease or a mortgage,
Yes.
they're not eligible.
Okay. It's only if they become homeless or the hotel and,
It's if they're evicted.
okay,
If many families fall under hardship because they don't want to wait and be evicted. They don't want to have an eviction notice on their record.
okay,
So they leave the residence before they get evicted.
okay,
So oftentimes they qualify under economic hardship.
got it. Okay, and how long do we support that for?
We support them throughout the school year in which they become homeless. So basically until June.
Until June, so max a year.
Well, then we reevaluate in the summer in terms of where they are. And we make a new determination in the summer based on their current situation.
Okay,
If they are across the bridge or in another town at a hotel or a temporary residence, we share the bill of transportation with the other district that is housing them at that time.
The hotels are pretty clear that they're not, it's not adequate housing.
yes,
So that's pretty clear that they continue to qualify. Where it gets a little tricky is when it's called doubled up, when they're living with another family member or friend, and that becomes prolonged, like a year or 2 years. Then I start having a conversation with the family that this is really looking like a permanent residence and not a temporary residence. And we start to, you know,
transition, so let's say,
transition them. Yes.
so let's say they're in Groton and they live in New London.
Yeah.
You're talking about transitioning them to the New London program. Okay, great, thank you.
Denise, what's the breakdown of school social workers per school, do you know?
Oh, sure. We have a school social worker at every school except Northeast Academy. That is the only school.
And Charles Barnum for the regular ed population.
Right.
They have it just for the specialized program.
Right, so we have a school psychologist at Charles, or I'm sorry, a social worker at Barnum. She's in the academy program. Every school has a school psychologist. The issue with Northeast is it's the only school that has no specialized programs. So they don't have any preschool classrooms, they don't have any autism classrooms, any behavioral academy classrooms. They have no specialized programs. And they do have a full-time school psychologist.
Do some schools have two, like two psychologists or two social
The larger
workers?
schools do, yes. Groton Middle has 3, because they have a school psychologist in the academy. The high school has 2. They have a school psychologist in the New Beginnings Alternative Program. And then the larger elementary schools, Mystic and Thames, have 2, well, they have 1.5, because one psychologist does the testing for both schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Adrian?
All right. Yeah, thank you for that presentation. Under non-certified staff, it says 272, but in that, underneath that, in non-certified staff, it shows, you know, I don't know, roughly 60 more staff than are listed underneath it in that category. So in the bottom line there. So what are the other staff that would fall into that category? Are they just under
Oh, that must be a typo. Thank you for finding that.
So is it 209
Yes.
or is that right? Yeah,
Well, it would
209.
be, 198 plus
All right.
11.
209. All right. So paras, I was trying to figure out how many paras we have in the district, paraprofessionals, compared to, you know, maybe 5 years ago or something. And I was trying to look back. Are you including aides that would be classroom teacher aides in your para numbers?
No.
So you're just special ed paras? All right, so it looks like it's a pretty linear number, I
And the
think.
TK paras are in here.
All right. All right, yeah, I came up with, well, in 20, it was 194 in 2020. I don't know if that would include, well, we didn't have TK then, right?
We had TK in 20.
And we had 17%.
That would only be 1, but we only had 1 class.
We weren't
This is
at-
the first year we've had 4.
So how many TK pairs are there?
4. This is the first year we've had 4.
All right, so it is similar numbers. How many open para positions do we have now?
District-wide, I don't have a count for district-wide. I know there are some schools that have more vacancies than others, like Groton Middle and the high school.
So we have no idea?
I don't have the data on me right now.
We can
We
get
can
that
find
from,
out.
No.
we can get
All
that
right.
from Lori.
All right, yeah, that'd be great. I know we had, I think it was like around 30 or something like that a month and a half ago. So I'm just wondering, you know, how we're doing that on paras. And what happens when, so if we do, I'm just going to use the 30 number from a month and a half ago, and we'll pretend we're there.
30 number for what?
Open para positions.
Okay.
I think it was something like that a month and a half ago when we were talking
Okay.
about it. What happens, so that the students that have a para on their IEP, who does that?
Who does?
If the paras are, if we have open para positions, so,
The special ed teachers are filling in, they're doing the bulk of it. And they're also reassigning other paras when students are absent. So it's a lot of shifting of people in terms of which students are absent, what paras are available. We're working with the union to have para subs. We have para subs who haven't passed the parapro yet, but are still working. So they're supporting our students, and then the teachers are supporting our students.
And
All
I
right.
would say they also, if it's a one-to-one situation or one that needs that much support, that they'll even take a substitute teacher and put them in there. I mean, I think that they, like you said, they even assign themselves, teachers will go in and help out and support. So they really try to figure it out daily. It can be very, I know Mystic River has the most amount, what is it, 50 paras? And he's constantly, it takes all 3 administrators to figure out who's covering which base. So there's still a lot of absenteeism with that group.
We have increased his subs, we have increased his building.
Yeah, we did add another building
To
sub for
help
him.
meet the needs of the teachers who are out. You know, because we have some teachers who are out on long-term leaves. And then when he puts a building sub in that position for long-term, then he didn't have subs to cover daily absences. So we've been working with the schools in terms of making sure they have enough subs to cover the daily teacher absences as well as the para absences.
so if, so I'm just saying, if we have 30, if we're short 30 pairs in the district, that's 30 days of labor that we need, right? And special ed teachers presumably already have a caseload of, a dozen children that they're working with. So where is that time coming from? Because it doesn't seem to me that special ed teachers could cover that amount of time that would be needed for the paras, like the hours. Am I incorrect in my thinking on this?
Every child has a different
It's more.
amount of support that they
Yeah,
need.
it's more integrated. So the special ed teachers push into the gen ed classrooms. So they provide support in the classroom as well as in the resource room. So their groups might be larger, or the groups that the paras are working with might be larger on a given day to cover all of the students who need support.
Oh, so we're pairing students up where, like, a student that would normally have a one-on-one might have two students with a
Absolutely.
pair.
We always make sure that they have the support that they need. Absolutely, because it could be a safety issue otherwise.
I would say, though, we have many students who have shared support.
Many.
So that we cluster them in classrooms, like a couple or three at a time, so the para can go in and service all three kids. So we do have that.
So the para would be going between groups of students during the day?
Yes.
All right. So how many students have one-on-one requirements in their IEPs, do you know?
Not off the top of my head. We have 821 students.
Yeah.
But I would say, is it about half and half? No, not even, no, okay.
All right. And then my other question is just BCBA, did we lose? I thought we had like 2 or 2.5 last year. Did we
No,
lose somebody in there?
We had 2.6. This year we have 2.8.
So we gained
We
one
gained
more
one.
time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, we added.
I see it. Oh, is it in 2 spots?
Yep, it's in 2 spots. Well,
Oh, all right, that's why I was wondering. I saw there was one of them under certified staff,
yeah,
but
one is
they're
paid for
contracted.
Through the board, and one is paid for through
Contract.
contract. Or 1.8 is paid for through contract.
All right. And then my other question was just certified staff. And I tried finding this with some of the data I could find, and it was difficult. So, because it shows special ed certified teachers, like in 2020 was 94. And now I'm showing, so now we show 63 as special ed teachers. But I guess I mean, has our certified staff changed
No, we didn't.
much
have
in the last?
before.
Maybe it could
Last
have,
year we didn't have
could it, they have
No,
called
in 2020. I was just going back to see what our changes over time, and I happen to have
Certified staff
2020.
could have referred to all of those. See where it says certified staff at the
Yeah.
top, and you've got the teachers,
They were
the speech
probably
path.
lumping in all of the.
all of
related
those people
service
together.
Professionals, because we've never had 90. What was the number you just gave, 93?
It was 94.4, and that's, I mean, this is a FTE graph that's
Yeah,
just
I'd
showing
have to see
all
what
those
data.
departments.
I think
you're looking at,
they're
but
talking
we've
about
never
that full group of certified staff that
We've
you
never
see.
had 94 special ed teachers,
Well, there's 94 special ed certified staff.
but we've
in
never had
this.
94 special ed teachers.
Teacher, yeah, so they could have been doing other
They're
things. They
broken
just
out by
happened.
category,
All right.
Well, the certified staff looks like it's 119.6.
but they're
So
broken
you-
out by category.
Right, but if he saw a thing that said certified staff at 94, it's probably in
Probably
2020.
everybody.
It's
It's
probably everybody.
probably
Yeah,
everyone.
all right.
Yeah.
All right, and then, yeah, there's some other things that are on the referral sheet that I'll wait to ask questions on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Denise?
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yes,
Denise.
thank you very much.
Yeah, it's an early night.
This is very early for us. We have-
Do you need me for the last part?
No.
You guys can handle
no,
that, right?
no, yeah,
So I
exactly.
can head home?
We had a meeting about making our meeting shorter, and
Well, 3 hours, I feel like that's shorter.
Yeah.
well, it's not over yet.
Can't imagine this will take too long.
No, this won't take too long. So just to lead into this, one of the things we discussed was having everybody sort of and I didn't get a chance to tell Dean because he wasn't here, but everybody ranking how they want their referrals to be taken up, so that we can kind of work on that referral list. And so the first person to do that was Ian, and so this is his item, and so I'm going to turn it over to him to introduce what he'd like to propose.
Sure, thank you. And I do want to thank everyone on the board for, agreeing to the idea of trying to push through the referral list. So for adding the report of communications, this referral, basically I was just looking at other meetings in other towns and other bodies in this town. There are usually a report of communications at the beginning of, or incorporated at some point during the meetings, where members can just share whatever communications they may have received regarding something on the agenda, or something, tangential to the agenda. And this came to light, I didn't realize it was a thing that we did not do. I was attempting to put an agenda item in for this, for the Budget Procedure Committee meetings, because I had received some communication that I wanted to share with the committee, and also to open the floor for other members to send stuff to the committee. So, in general, I just wanted to kind of get the sense of the board to see if that was a thing that we'd want to allow for during, it already is part of the regular Board of Ed meetings, but as far as like allowing for it, an opportunity for that to happen in every COW meeting and the subcommittee meetings. Subcommittee meetings, I imagine, could be at the discretion of the chair of the subcommittee. It wouldn't be a forced thing. It would be, or at the will of those subcommittees, if they wanted to allow it. But just another way for us to better function and in a more organic fashion as representatives of the community, if we do receive communications regarding, what's going on forward, with the board at the time.
Is that your motion?
It's a discussion item right now.
Discussion, yeah.
And if there's consensus in this body, then I guess we could move it into an action item.
I hear, go ahead, Matthew.
No, go ahead.
I personally would be against that because we're talking about streamlining the meetings, and now we're adding more. Like I said before, you all want to cut with the presentations, but you don't want to cut what the board members do. So this is just adding more time with board members, yakety yak and a yakety yak. I mean, if we want to streamline the meetings, I'm definitely against this.
Two things. Sorry, I just noticed your mic was off.
That's okay.
And two, I don't know. I mean, I would.
That's just my opinion.
I'd push back a little bit on the yakety yak.
Well, yakety yak
characterization.
is,
I mean,
Well, I used a similar word earlier, and
yeah. 'Cause
It's Bev talk, it's Bev
people
talk.
going on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
I mean, so we want to, we have it at the regular board meetings. That's fine with me.
So I hear two competing interests. Both of them are valid. On the one, an opportunity for any board member to express communications at any session. Valid. The other is we want to keep our meetings under 12 hours, and we've been agreed to let them make their presentation except for brief points of clarification. So what I'm wondering, if there's a way to honor that by saying that, no, we will only have formal report of communication to the Board of Ed, but I don't think there's anything that stops a board member from saying, there's something important I'd like to speak to on a point of personal privilege. I have a communication that's worth sharing. And I can't imagine any chair turning that down. If there's something urgent, by all means, otherwise we'll hold it to the meeting. How do you feel about that?
I think it's a fair compromise. If it's understood that that's, an acceptable thing to do.
I mean, if somebody says something's important, the chair's going to honor that, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I'm confused about the, and I'm going to pick, I'm going to go to you, Mike, in just a second. How do we define communication? So currently, when we do communications, at the end of the meeting, it's also anything within the jurisdiction of the board. And we've had those go on for a long time. And it's never reading an email that they actually received. It's never reading a communication from a constituent that we all received anyway. We just mentioned that we received, we all received an email about such and such, but we never really read. So I'm not sure how we're defining communications. So is this, I got a phone call, they didn't clear the ice properly at the school, I got an email, but they didn't add the rest of you on it, so how are we defining that? And how will it also grow into, beyond communications, just saying, well, I heard from a constituent, and then turning into a longer discussion? So, I don't know how you define communications.
Well, I mean, the way I understand it, I mean, under FOI, like you can report the communication, we could define it, say like it has to be, a communication that was received, via phone, email, or text, and, and keep it to a simple summary and no discussion. Summary and, if a member wants to make a referral based on that communication, that's always within their purview. But that would keep it short and sweet. Again, sort of similar to the response to citizens petitions, where it's an opportunity for us as a board to acknowledge the communications we receive from the community and, show that we are receptive and responsive, but not go off the rails and have unscheduled discussions.
Right, but see, that happens a lot in the meeting already.
Yes.
We go off on tangents, and I have been very clear about not wanting to do that. However, I also don't want to insult anybody's intelligence or cut them off, because it might be somehow related. Maybe the next chair, when I step down, will bring a stronger hand to that. But at this point, I feel like we go all over the map. Like even when we're talking about referral items, we're not supposed to get into the meat of the matter. But Mike, you had your hands up.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to talk about something totally different. That's a joke.
Out of order.
In most cases, I think it's just best to, if you got a communication by email, just forward it to the board. That's just point of information. It's not a meeting. And if it's through another means, just summarize it, send it to the board or the relevant committee. And I do understand it's important to, kind of acknowledge that we have these communications too. And oftentimes that can be dealt with, if it was received in person, say thank you for that. And if it's received by email, just responding to them with a perfunctory thank you. We'll bring this to the rest of the board's attention. But if it is something larger, I think that's where I wouldn't want to get rid of that part in the regular meetings, because that's probably our broadest audience usually, and that's a good place to bring them up again if need be. Thanks.
Dean.
Yeah, I'm with Bev. I thought about this, and I'm thinking, I know where you're going, Ian. The transparency, communications, et cetera. The communications portion of our regular agenda, regular meeting agenda, also includes, I was at a dinner, I went to a conference, it's a report back on your activities, I visited the school. So it potentially could be a pretty broad thing. I like that you say it ought to be at the discretion of the subcommittee chairs. That's fine. I think the subcommittees should do whatever they want, within subcommittee reason. So that leaves it down to Board of Ed, we've already taken care of. We're not going to lose it there on the regular meeting. Now it's just the cows we're talking about. Should we have a communications portion of the agenda on the cows? And I say no. Only because the cow is also it's a committee of the board. It has specific business to engage in to discuss at its meeting. You could add a communications portion. I'm not sure how productive it could be. Do you feel constrained by reporting the communications officially only once a month?
At the time that I made this referral, I think I did, but after the, past many months, I can say that it's not as much of an imperative anymore that I feel, but I just wanted to kind of get the temperature of the board and be able to dispose of this referral item, sounds like pretty short order.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I almost feel like there's a number of, and I'm about to go off topic, I almost feel like there's a number of things on the referral list we could just have a night where just like 5 minutes each, just make a rule. We're going to discuss these each for 5 minutes.
Bang 'em out.
And decide whether anybody has any interest, but I will now shut my mouth. All right.
So this is an,
That's what I say we should do before it even goes on referral, is see if people have the interest. I think
That's-
Dean and I would agree on that.
Yeah. As I sit here, I don't remember, I know we have a procedure, and my mind just blanks on this one, because you know what the whole book is like this. We probably have a procedure, and I don't remember how tight it is for making referrals. The point for everything we do, the reason why we have a second is, under Robert's rules, it's to demonstrate that there is actually interest in the topic. If somebody moves something and nobody seconds, then there is insufficient interest. But if somebody seconds, then that's at least two people that want to discuss something. The same thing is true of the referrals. There ought to be a similar process for referrals, where there has to be some interest beyond just the person saying, I'd like to talk about. There probably ought to be a second for that of some form.
We did have the discussion, though, that almost everything on the referral list probably could have found a second. I mean, there's nothing really on the referral list that's so totally,
Because most people are
Out of-
game, so you hear very often, I'll second for discussion.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyway, all right. Any other discussion on that?
not on the agenda item, but I did have a discussion point on that point. But
Well, we can put
after the
that,
adjournment, after the adjournment.
we can
I make a
take,
motion to adjourn.
I
have
second.
a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Mark.
Recording
Thank you,
stopped.
Kate.
I would say if we're gonna
Good night.
kind of thresh.
Bye, Mark.